Hormuz. So you will have your blockade, we will have ours, but that's the area in which all this military action is going to happen, and therefore it can be controlled. Is there an element to that that would allow both sides to manage the conflict more and perhaps manipulate it depending on the kind of negotiations that are going on?
That's very much true, but that's half of the story. Because what the Iranians did when they were attacked, they directed most of their hits at the GCC countries, which are on the other side of the Gulf and on the other side of the Strait of Hormuz. So this area became the focal point, not only because of the Strait of Hormuz, but because of the targets. The Iranian regime saw all GCC countries as American addresses, regardless of who they are. I mean, Qatar hedged and helped Iran quite a bit, and they enjoyed very good relations prior to the war. Oman the same, and other countries, even Kuwait. Kuwait, traditionally maintained very good relations with Iran. But during the war, they were all targeted as addresses. So this part of the region, if you like, it's not only because of the Strait of Hormuz, but because the war was actually conducted here. More missiles flew towards GCC countries than against Israel, and then against the United States, which is too far away. And the Iranians did not target U.S. vessels in the seas, only like a few times. So the Strait of Hormuz, yes, I agree with that. It is the focal point, and it is where they are controlling this conflict. But it's not only for that reason. It is also because the GCC countries are on the other side of the Gulf.
Mohammed Salim, as always, we appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. 3,000 containers of goods destined for Iran have ended up stranded in Pakistan as a direct result of the U.S. naval blockade. Osama bin Javed's in the Pakistani capital, Islamabad. So talk us through this situation with this cargo that seems to be stuck in Pakistan.
Well, Rob, we've been speaking to industry analysts, and documents that have exclusively been shown to Al Jazeera now confirm that the Iranian Chamber of Commerce is seeking help to move these containers to Tehran. Essentially, this was cargo destined for Iran, and it landed in Pakistan as transshipment. They were expecting that a cargo ship will come from Iran and ferry this away from the Karachi ports, but it has not happened because of the blockade and the situation in the Strait of Hormuz. Now we're hearing that there might be a land route where trucks will carry this cargo to the border and they will be carried through to Iran. Iran is dependent a lot on these exports. Tens of billions of dollars worth of imports are needed to sustain its economy, and that is being affected now. What we are also hearing that the Iranians have essentially ships exiting from the Strait of Hormuz have set up a toll booth of sorts where allies and friends go for gratis. You've got Pakistani, Malaysian, and other ships who've gone for free. There are others, including Chinese, who've had to pay a fee. And then there are those who are blocked from exiting the Strait of Hormuz. And now, on top of that, you've got the U.S. blockade, which essentially blocks and cuts off any supply going to Iran. As you've been reporting, and we've been hearing from other military as well as shipping sources, they tell us that there are some ships that are being allowed to go through or can slip through despite the U.S. blockade, but it just goes to show that the Americans might have found something that puts more pressure on Iran than the actual military campaign itself.
Yeah, let's expand a little bit on the consequences of this. You did refer to the fact this is blocking millions of dollars worth of goods getting into Iran. Just talk to us through what you understand would be the consequences both for Iran, but also, of course, regionally as well of the disruption.
But despite the conflict, the Strait of Hormuz has been a lucrative area for Iran. It has been able to export billions of dollars worth of oil. And the ships that are passing through that its navy is allowing have been paying that multi-tier toll that I explained. We've been told by maritime experts that toll is about $1 a barrel. So if there is a ship that is carrying 200 million barrels worth of oil, it's going to pay about $2 million. So it's going to be a difficult adjustment for the Iranians to make because they are essentially now...
Hello, this is DrPaulCottrell, and we are live streaming on Rumble and YouTube. We're also live streaming on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can see the telemetry on YouTube or my website, live updates of what's going on in the markets. Markets will be open in about 7 minutes. Right now, the futures for the S&P 500 are up about 48 points at 7,148, and the VIX is at 19 at the moment. Oil is trading at $91.12. Last night, the big news after the markets closed was Trump stating that there was going to be a ceasefire extension to indefinitely, which makes, from my perspective, it makes it seem as though he's weak with dealing with Iran. The Iranians weren't willing to come to the table. In Pakistan, the flight for J.D. Vance was postponed, and all of a sudden Trump says that he's going to extend the ceasefire indefinitely. Last night, during I think it was the European session, the Iranians ended up hitting some tankers. We'll go into some details of that shortly here, but it seems as though the Iranians have the upper hand here. Seems like Trump is losing control of the situation. Why is he doing this? He should have hit Iran. He stated that the ceasefire was going to end. If they weren't going to come to the table, that he was going to hit something. Well, doesn't look like he's doing what he's saying to do. It seems like he's chickened out once again. This is the problem that Trump has. He's just about ready to do something the right way to do things, and then all of a sudden he pulls back. So he chickened out. It was Tuesday, Taco Tuesdays. So before we begin going over the news, please help support the work that I do by sharing the links, asking your social media to follow me. You can follow me on TikTok and GETTR, on Patreon, on Substack, YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. You can help support the work by sharing the links and asking your social media to follow me. You can also help by being a paid member to my Patreon channel or my Substack channel. You can also donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All these videos are for free. If you help support the work, I'll be able to reach a larger audience to be able to tell them how to improve their health, especially post-2020 crisis, and how to improve their financial well-being. If you pay attention to what I've been saying, you'll be making money. All right? I'm very good at this. So you just pay attention to me and you'll be okay. Physically, with your wellness and your health, but also it will be able to navigate you through these tumultuous times in your finances. So with that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great products that I offer. Some of the great products that I offer are the C60. Now, C60 is a very strong antioxidant. It's very potent. Take a teaspoon a day every day. I've been doing this since 2016, so over 16 years. Not 16 years, over 10 years. I started in 2016, so taking C60. So over 10 years, I've been taking a teaspoon a day. All right? So what you do with C60 is by taking a teaspoon a day, you'll be able to soak up those free radicals. You want to take it on an empty stomach, preferably in the morning for best absorption. But what it'll do is it'll soak up free radicals and improve your mitochondria and boost up your energy levels. But not just that, it's reducing the stress in the tissue and reducing stress in the cell so it will perform better. Your organ systems will perform better. You're also bringing down inflammation by doing that. So what's happening is that your tissues are actually performing better. So your endocrine system and your immune system will be performing better. But by soaking up free radicals at the vascular level, you're also bringing down the concentrations of oxidized LDL. When you do that, you're reducing plaque formation. That means that your vascular system is healthier and you're getting better perfusion along your different tissues, including your brain. Better cardiovascular health will lead to a healthier brain. But also, by having just better organ systems, your body will perform better. Now, C60 will also help with the basal layer of your skin, so your skin will improve. So taking C60 every day is super important to slow down the aging process and get your body back to a healthy level of homeostasis. All right. So you can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. You can also get it in extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT coconut oil. All right. So please go to my store, get the C60, take it every day, take a teaspoon a day, every day. I've been doing this since 2016. So for 10 years, a little bit over 10 years. Every day. You do it every day, you're going to slow down the aging process. And you'll also notice that you will be able to recover after a workout quicker. You'll have more energy. And by reducing the stress on your lungs and on your kidneys and on your liver, you'll also help with brain function. Now, people would say, well, how can that help with brain function? It can help with brain function by improving your liver and your kidneys, because your liver and your kidneys filter out your blood. You detoxify because of your kidneys and your liver. So if they aren't working right, then toxins are in the bloodstream that can create inflammation, lead to the blood-brain barrier to be leaky, and eventually what happens is you start having inflammation and problems with your brain. So good health at the liver and the kidney level is super important for brain function. In addition, if you have good musculature, you're going to help with brain function, because you're improving the concentrational levels for the myokines and the BDNF to allow for your neurons to be protected. Also for lungs. People would say, how is the lungs going to affect the brain? Well, if you can't oxygenate your blood very well, you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain. It causes problems. In addition, if you have the vascular system inflamed and compromised within the lung tissue, then eventually you'll have compounds getting into the bloodstream, causing inflammation, leading to the blood-brain barrier problems, and then eventually inflammation and amyloidosis. So good lung function, good kidney function, good liver function are all super important for brain. So this is the reason why you want to bring down and soak up those free radicals, bring down the inflammation, bring down the stress, and soak up free radicals to allow for your body to get to its maximum potential. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the C60. All right. Make sure you use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Links in the description. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift till supplies last. All right, we're going to go to live now and find out what happened with those tankers. At least 2 ships were attacked last night.
A live look at the radar system there at the Strait of Hormuz, courtesy of marine traffic. The Associated Press just coming down with this, that Iran's semi-official news agencies are now reporting that the paramilitary Revolutionary Guard has attacked a 3rd ship in the Strait of Hormuz, throwing into question efforts to end the war. Those news outlets all reported the attack by the Guard on a vessel called the Euphoria. They said the vessel had become, quote, stranded on the Iranian ships that were attacked, according to Iranian state television, who separately reported that update. Also, U.S. forces have boarded an oil tanker previously sanctioned for smuggling Iranian crude oil in Asia, according to the Pentagon. And we are following this very closely. The tanker is the 2nd vessel linked to Iran that has been intercepted by the U.S. military. Iranian forces versus what we're seeing in terms of military activity. Are we still in an active conflict? Is that what it's considered right now?
100%. Towards the end of any armed conflict in the history of warfare, there's always these, are we not shooting? Are we shooting? There are people that want to fight to the end. There are people that want to give up immediately. And that's part of the issue that we're seeing right now is that so the president might not be talking to the right people, and he might be talking to the right people. And the same thing on the Iranian side. What do I mean by this? This happens when you decapitate the first and second echelon of leadership in a country. The president is most likely talking to diplomats who want to live. They understand negotiation. They understand give and take. On the other side, on Iran, are IRGC zealots. These are men who, they're in a lose-lose position right now. What do I mean by that? They're either going to get killed by the United States and Israel in combat, or if Iran truly loses, they're going to get killed by their own people. They killed tens, if not, 30, 40,000. I think the minimum number I saw was from like Human Rights Watch, 10,000 people estimated. And I've seen as high as 40,000 people. So the men who ordered that and have been doing this for the past 47 years or so, they're probably going to get strung up in the square. So they're in a lose-lose position. So I'm fairly certain the IRGC folks are going to fight to the end because they're going to meet their end either by the Iranians or us. So we're in a tough part of the negotiations. I know the president extended the ceasefire last night. J.D. Vance, I think, was driving out or flying out to Andrews or wherever to hop on a plane to fly to Pakistan. But you're going to see this towards the end of armed conflict. A lot of confusion, who's on first going on. But the United States is ready to go. I was in the Oval Office Saturday morning. Talk about a split screen. So I was in the Oval Office with the president Saturday morning for his executive order signing on psychedelic assisted therapy in veterans. And then I texted my buddy, General Kane, Raisin Kane. He was underneath us. He was buried way beneath us in the White House Situation Room, focused on this. So the United States and Israel, but the United States has used this time to rearm, to rest, to do much needed maintenance on aircraft. And we're ready to go at a moment's notice. And you saw, the surface ships of the United States Navy do what they were designed to do, enforce a blockade, fire on a vessel, disabling their engine room. And then our United States Marine Corps fast roping out of helicopters and seizing, a tanker or two. So Easter weekend, the Combat Search and Rescue Forces of the United States military, that was their Super Bowl. Well, now it's the United States Navy Super Bowl with the blockades and stuff. So we are ready to go. And General Kane and Secretary Hegseth are waiting for the president to say, okay, let's go and finish this. And I pray here that hostilities finally cease and we find some peace.
We are taking a look here at this graphic courtesy of Marine Traffic, a live look. Just for context to our viewers there, we do have the green dots on the screen. They're cargo ships. The red dots on the screen are tankers that are in that area. Wiz, as you know, we are asking our viewers to submit those questions, and we have one of the first ones coming in right now. So this one is courtesy of Kathy. She asks this: why can't the United States allow ships past the strait and keep the Iranian ships back?
Well, I think that's actually where we are. The president did the reverse blockade about a week or so ago. Iran kind of shut it down, and the president said, well, you know what? No, we're going to shut it down, and we're only going to let people in or out that are friendly to us. We're going to stop or seize any ships that are sympathetic or supporting Iran. So I think that's currently what's going on. So I think we're in that point where the president's kind of easing up this blockade for friendlies. Because remember, our buddies in Europe and our buddies in NATO are starting to show up after, of course, major fighting is concluded. Like, hey, what can we do? The president of the United States, in his first term, it was a campaign slogan: drill, baby, drill. So the United States, as of years ago, is a net exporter of oil. As the president said a couple days ago, I saw on the ship radar, there was a conga line of about 120 tankers coming to Galveston, to New Orleans, to get oil from who? us. So the president wasn't, being funny a couple of weeks ago when he said, you know what, go get your own oil, Europe, or you can come buy it from us. So at the end of the day, there are countries and continents around this world that need the oil out of the Middle East a lot more than we do right now. So it's very interesting horse trading going on, but hopefully we're in the fourth quarter of this. This isn't the beginning. It's not over, but I'd say we're more or less in the fourth quarter.
All right, for anyone that does want to continue to submit viewer questions, we have another one, Wiz, but a reminder that you can scan the QR code I'm about to put up on the screen or head to Live Now.
I personally think that Trump is looking weak right now. He should have hit Iran right after the ceasefire term of 2 weeks was up. It's ridiculous him going back and forth.
.com/connect. This next question, Wiz putting it up here, it comes from Mike. He asks, do we really know if Iran has planted mines in the water? And if so, what is happening now to remove them?
It's a great question, Mike, and I'm going to go the diplomatic route that we talked about a little while ago. I'm sure the diplomats most likely don't know. The military guys do know. So that's what's going on here is we have two separate arms of government here. We got the military and we got the diplomats. According to my sources, yes, there were some mines. I think, the most conservative estimate was about 5. Maybe the worst case scenario was about 10-ish. That's not a lot, but if you're a ship company owner, you don't want to send $1 billion, $2 billion tanker through this strait. I've sailed through the Strait of Hormuz on the Abraham Lincoln and the USS Kitty Hawk. It's kind of tight at its tightest point, about 20 so miles. So I think a couple got out there, but let's talk about the Super Bowl again. This is the Super Bowl for the United States Navy and Navy divers and Navy SEALs. I was again in the Oval Office Saturday morning with Marcus Luttrell, Morgan Luttrell, and Rob O'Neill. These SEALs, there are special SEAL teams that these guys will jump over the side of the boat with their scuba gear on and go find these mines and disarm them. I'm in the air conditioning at 30,000 feet. I have no interest in doing that, so God bless our Navy SEALs. But we have Navy divers. We have underwater demolition teams. We have littoral combat ships. We have the capability to go find these mines and destroy them. So it's not that many. And that was really the worst case scenario, wasn't it? Like, we're going to wake up one morning and they're going to have strung, hundreds of mines. They have thousands of them and completely across the strait. They didn't do that. So the fact that we're horse trading here about, oh man, there might be a couple mines, it is the best case scenario. And we're going to find these things and get rid of them. But let me finish with how I started. I don't think they even know. I think there were some renegade commanders who said, you know what? Because don't forget, last year, after Operation Midnight Hammer, they came up with what is called the Mosaic Plan. The command in Iran said, hey, if we're taken out, if they decapitate us, the 31 provinces in Iran, all the military commanders, you're cleared hot. You're allowed to just attack in any direction and create havoc. So I think that's what happened is there was some enterprising naval commanders who said, all right, well, I guess it's time to shine. We're going to go throw some mines out here. But after seeing their buddies getting blown up in big Iranian mine-laying ships or even small fast boats that can carry 3 to 4 mines after they were destroyed, I don't think there's too many brave Iranian sailors who want to do this. So I think we're going to clear these out if there are any even left at all in the strait.
All right.
Wiz, our next question.
All right, so we're going to go to some other clips. But before we do, the market is open, and the S&P 500 is trading at 7,112. I have a target of 7,400 or 7,800 for year end for the S&P 500. 19 is the VIX. It's important to realize that VIX index is relatively stable with this whole issue with the Strait of Hormuz and the hitting of the 2 tankers last night. Now, there's going to be a resistance level for the S&P 500 at 7,250. There's a support level at 7,000, and the next support level after 7,000 is going to be 6,600, just in case something happens in the strait. Euro is stabilized at 117. Also, the Japanese yen's trading at 159. So that currency market stable. What is interesting is Bitcoin has been inching upward since things have been relatively stable in the Middle East at 78,690. Now, oil is trading at 91.84. And for the ones that have been paying attention to me, watch for the ETF UCO. That has been fluctuating. If oil is going up, that ETF will also go up. So 41.20, well, 41.30 right now for that ETF. Also Gush, which is a long energy play on energy companies. That's trading at 36.58 right now. And DRIP, which is the inverse, is trading at 4.82. All right. So in terms of oil, if things de-escalate, we're going to see oil go down. Now, the question is there really going to be de-escalation in the region, or is there going to be escalation in the region? Is Trump really going to hit Iran? If they are, oil's going to spike. So I think the traders are saying, you know what? It's probably better to be in the high 80 range or the low 90 range right now, because you don't know what Trump's going to do. That there is a decent probability that Trump will hit Iran. So you don't want to be caught off guard. So I think right now the trading, the resistance level for oil is going to be 94. The support level is probably going to be roughly around 88. So I think there's going to be a trading range here between 88 and 94. Now, if things really escalate in the region, then you're looking at breaking 94 and approaching 100 for the WTI. All right, so that's the market update. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Myotrol. Myotrol is a supplement that you should be taking that will help to build muscle, maintain muscle. When you get older, once you hit about 40 years of age, male or female, it's harder to build muscle. The reason being is that you methylate genes, and when you're methylating genes, it's harder to express them. Sometimes certain genes completely turn off. It's called aging. So you can affect your epigenetics based on lifestyle changes and supplementation. And that's the whole point of anti-aging and longevity. You can control your epigenetics. If you can slow down the methylation or reverse it, you are going to have more youthful gene expression. So with Myotrol, with the polyphenols, the flavonoids, and the lignans, what will happen is that you can express your genes for muscle creation. So you have to stimulate your body by doing the resistance training, take the Myotrol, and what will happen is that you'll have gene expression to build muscle and to maintain it. So your atrophy will decline. You'll be able to reverse the atrophy and build muscle. That's really important. Not just to have musculature, but when you have more muscles in your leg, you're going to actually improve your cardiovascular health because you have better venous return flow to your heart. So you have better preload. And addition, with improving your musculature, you're helping with your brain function because when you have musculature, you're building up chemicals that are called myokines. And myokines are neuroprotective. And you're also increasing BDNF, which is super important for neuroprotection. So having musculature actually improves your brain function. Plus, you're getting better return flow to your heart, especially when you improve your calf muscles. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Myotrol. Also do your back exercises, super important. Better back posture will help with your immune system. Why? Dr. Paul Cottrell, that doesn't make any sense. Doing back muscles, how can that improve your immune system? I'll tell you why. If you have poor posture, you're going to have problems with your lymphatic flow. When you're leaning over, when you're older, you don't have as good of a lymphatic flow. In addition, if you have better back posture and more musculature for your back, you're also improving the density of your vertebrae. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Myotrol. This is going to help with the gene expression to build muscle and maintain muscle. If you're an athlete, younger or older, you'll also benefit with Myotrol. Why? Simple. You're going to be building muscle for your sport. So please go to my store, get the Myotrol. Younger or older, you'll benefit from this, and stack it with Gladiator Barley for added benefits of gaining muscle. And lastly, vitamin B complex. If you're 40 years of age or older, male or female, your metabolism isn't as good as it used to be. And that's why people are getting fat. But if you rev up your metabolism and control your diet and eat proper food, you'll actually get healthy. With vitamin B complex, what it'll do is the first 4 B vitamins works with your mitochondria to build ATP. So you have lots of ATP. When you get older, your ATP starts to decline. Why? Because your mitochondria isn't healthy. But if you improve the mitochondria by taking the proper supplementation, what will happen is your energy levels at the tissue level and within the cell will increase. And therefore your organ systems will work better. And when you do that, you're actually reversing aging because you're actually improving the health of your mitochondria. So vitamin B complex, the first 4 B vitamins, helps to boost up that ATP. Other vitamins within this complex will help to rev up the cellular metabolism so you're not fat, all right? And so your cells work properly and your tissues work properly. And vitamin B complex helps to protect your neurons through vitamin B12. Super important. So if you want to get healthy, better start paying attention to me because my protocol works. I am the most comprehensive person to tell you on what to do on how to slow down the aging process. There's nobody out there that's more comprehensive with an affordability price target. You know, there's this guy named Brian Johnson. He's the tech bro that's a billionaire that, you know, is spending $2 million trying to reverse aging. And he's doing all these things that are actually making him age faster, not slower. It's stupid. And not only that, the average person doesn't have $2 million to spend. If you pay attention to me, I will tell you how to improve your health and slow down the aging process with an affordability that the average person can do. All right. And it works. I do it. And, you know, it does slow down the aging process. Now, it's important to understand that the body and the tissues within the body age at different rates. So you have your chronological age, but you also have an age for your heart or an age for your brain or an age for your liver, age for your musculature. Sometimes you may be younger for a certain organ system compared to your chronological age. And sometimes you may be a lot older. Some people could be 30 years old and have a 50-year-old heart. Or they could be 30 years old and they have a 20-year-old liver. And this is the reason why that if you're a little bit more holistic about it and you're targeting the major components of aging, energy levels, soaking up free radicals, bringing down inflammation, you're helping all these organ systems. And you're going to be able to slow down the epigenetics of aging and you'll have more youthful gene expression. But it's also a holistic approach. And that is proper diet, proper exercise, more resistance training than cardio. If you're just doing cardio, you're doing it wrong. If you're doing just resistance training, you're doing it wrong. If you're only doing yoga, you're doing it wrong. If you're only stretching, you're doing it wrong. You need about a 65-35 split, heavy on cardio or heavy on resistance training. All right. Why? Because you want to build more muscle. You need more muscle. Cardio isn't going to do it for you. So 65-35 split, make sure you do balancing and stretching exercises. When you do that, then you're actually, you're accelerating the process of slowing down the aging, right? You're giving it more power, more force to slowing down the aging process. Okay. But it's also proper diet. Make sure you filter your water. Make sure you're eating fruits and vegetables. Stay away from processed foods. Processed foods will hurt you. It's terrible for you. All right? Stay away from sugary foods. You want to control your blood glucose level. Why? Because higher blood glucose levels literally destroy tissue and cause inflammation. You cause more damage by having all those sugary types of foods. And another thing that's really important is mindfulness or spirituality, to be able to get into parasympathetic mode. When you're in parasympathetic mode more often, you have less cortisol levels elevated throughout the day. When you're all stressed out, your cortisol levels are elevated and starts damaging your tissues and causing havoc on your immune system. But if you're in parasympathetic mode, then you have less stress, less tissue damage. So spirituality or mindfulness is super important. Learning new things. If you don't learn new things, your brain will atrophy. So you need to read and write and talk to people in the real world. So when you approach this from a holistic way with proper sleep, getting enough sleep, when you approach this in a holistic way, you're hitting all of the variables of aging. If someone says, well, they're just going to sleep better. Well, no, if you have a lot of sugary foods, that's going to hurt you. You're going to end up having diabetes. Well, I do a lot of work. I do a lot of working out. Well, are you getting the proper supplementation? Because doing just a lot of working out and not soaking up free radicals, you're actually aging faster. Let me give you a point. If you look at a lot of athletes that do not take high doses of antioxidants, they age faster. Take a look at people that are, let's say, marathon runners or people that are triathletes or even on the Tour de France. And you look at them when they were in their peak and then 10 years after they retire. And you'll notice big difference in aging. Big difference in aging. And what's happening is that they're accumulating a lot of free radicals. Well, you need to soak those up. So it's not just exercise. So it's a holistic approach. So, people say, well, they just take some, a multivitamin, or they take some, some supplements. Well, that's great, but if you don't apply it in a holistic way, it's not going to do as much for you. And it's about the stacking of the supplements. It's not just taking supplements. What type of supplements are you taking? Are you targeting the inflammation, the free radicals? You're detoxifying your body? If you're not, then you're not doing it the right way. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Pay attention. If you just do what I'm doing, you'll be fine. Okay. With that, let's go to the news. All right. I want to listen to Fox on their take of what just happened with now there's 3 ships that were attacked. Earlier, there were 2 ships.
If you're not using a business travel platform like Navan, you're really missing out. Hi, I'm Ellie, and I'm the people operator.
Maddie, meanwhile, to another alert. At least 3 cargo ships have been hit by Iranian gunfires in those small little fast boats in the Strait of Hormuz, and it happened this morning.
Meanwhile, President Trump has extended his ceasefire deadline, citing a fractured regime. And Matt Finn is live in Islamabad, Pakistan, with the latest for us. Hey, Matt.
Hi, Ainsley. There is supposed to be a ceasefire, but we are getting these reports of 3 separate ships attacked in the Strait of Hormuz this morning. The 3rd cargo ship, the most recent, reportedly has been attacked while attempting to transit the strait. It may have a Panama flag on it. And earlier, the British military reported one of its ships was attacked as well. We don't have the confirmed attacker, but, Iran is suspected here. And here in Pakistan, both the president and the Pakistani prime minister have left it open-ended, the possibility of peace talks happening here. We saw how touch and go it was over the past couple of days. There was the possibility of peace talks happening today, and that obviously did not happen. Our White House producer, Pat Ward, says any further updates about in-person meetings on Iran will be announced by the White House. The president has given us some recent updates, writing on Truth. Iran is collapsing financially. They want the Strait of Hormuz opened immediately, starving for cash, losing $500 million a day. military and police complaining that they are not getting paid SOS. The president also writing, Iran doesn't want the Strait of Hormuz closed. They want it open so they can make $500 million a day, which is therefore what they are losing if it's closed. They only say they want it closed because I have it totally blockaded. So they merely want to save face. People approached me 4 days ago saying, sir, Iran wants to open up the strait immediately, but if we do that, there can never be a deal with Iran unless we blow up the rest of their country, their leaders included, President Donald J. Trump. Now, also happening today, the UK and France are hosting discussions with 30 other countries about plans to open the Strait of Hormuz. I did an interview with the head of the European Ship Association, and they say that some of these companies are losing millions of dollars a day. So the UK and Europe is very pressed to get that strait open right now. Back to you guys in New York.
All right, thanks so much, Matt. You know, it's amazing what's happening right now because one, we're victims of our own success, killing so many leaders, military leaders, as well as political leaders. They now have a rivalry playing out in real time in front of us between the political wing of the party, evil, but the really evil, military first, the IRGC. They're battling with each other in order to get a unified mission. And up until the last minute, I understand that it looked like they were all set to get on a plane and go to Pakistan. They got word. The Pakistani said the Iranians going to show up. And at the last minute, they said the Iran's not going to send any delegation. So we pulled back and we held off. And the president said, you know, we could probably go. He's probably thinking I could go back to the fight. But I think they should at least come back to us either a state of belligerence, let's bring it on, or a state of, here's my, you know, this is what I'd like to do, Ames.
Well, the president was tweeting about this on Truth Social, talking about how much money they're losing. They're losing $500 million a day with the strait being closed. So we want to dismantle the nuclear program in Iran until they give us that enriched uranium and agree to dismantle. Then we'll continue to keep that strait closed, and they will continue to lose money, and we will bleed them dry, and we'll continue that economic pressure. But Lawrence, the problem is Brian was mentioning with the negotiations, Iran can't communicate, first of all. So they have to go back and forth and try to find their supreme leader without being caught and without being traced.
And written notes.
Yeah, the senior leader is nowhere to be seen. And number three, there's that power struggle between the Iranian parliament speaker, Gilibov, and the IRG. He wants diplomacy and negotiations mixed with military strength. And apparently the IRCG is opposed to talks completely, Lawrence.
Yeah, so the regime is in total chaos. They have no leadership right now. No one is really in control. It looks like the supreme leader is still wounded, battered.
You know, there's probably infighting that's going on in Iran, and the supreme leader is probably in a coma, all right, and badly wounded. But the reality of the situation is that your enemy is weak now. Hit them. Stop playing patty cake. I don't understand why Trump is chickening out on this. He needs to hit Iran. I don't get it. I don't get it. You know, Trump's afraid. And once he was afraid to really be, you know, forceful with the tariffs. He's afraid of doing this. You know, he chickens out all the time. And it's always on Tuesday.
They can't communicate by cell phones because the Israelis and the Mossadists take over that. The pagers just don't work for them as well. They're pretty much down to carrier pigeons. They can't use boats. They can't use drones to communicate. Hey, and so what you have now is that the people with the guns now are controlling the operation. Now, the president wants to have this debate and allow them to get their act together. It looks like the Pakistanians are trying to convince the political leadership as well as the military leadership to get on the same page. But at some point, the president is going to lose his patience. And I think we're going to be right back to the battlefield, guys.
But how inappropriate was Senator Chris Murphy yesterday? First off, you know about his comments in Barcelona when he went off the map, addressing a bunch of socialists, ripping our country, saying we're run by a dictator. Governor Waltz, even more embarrassing, really to himself, he just doesn't realize it, ripping our country, saying the most horrific things, saying our president basically has lost his mind, judging by the guy that he was trumpeting, Joe Biden. He was the biggest defender of Joe Biden. This guy goes to Barcelona and rips our president. And then you have Chris Murphy. When the Iranians came out and they said at least 20, and they put this out, at least 26 Iranian shadow fleet vessels bypassed the U.S. blockade. Murphy put this on a retweet. He wrote, awesome.
He wrote awesome and got backlash from both sides, Democrats and Republicans. The Pentagon said, first of all, that report is completely false. Then they called Murphy's reaction shameful. Senator John Cornyn and the libs of TikToks, they accused Murphy of being a traitor and for rooting for Iran. And that's what we've heard from the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. He keeps saying, whose side are you on? As Americans, you shouldn't be rooting for Iran. You should be rooting for our country, even if you didn't vote for the president. But then, Lawrence, what did he do? How did he try to fix this yesterday?
Yeah, so after all the pushback, because many Americans are outraged, many people in the military are outraged, and reporters are asking him, what did you mean by this? And he said that it was all sarcasm. Here he is.
Twitter's become kind of a cesspool. I probably should give up on sarcasm on Twitter. Obviously, anybody that's seen anything that I have said about Trump's war knows that I think it's bungled, mismanaged, and he should end it as quickly as possible. But sarcasm is not something, I guess, that's allowed on Twitter any longer.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Lawrence, it had nothing to do with Twitter. This has nothing to do with X at all. That's your comment. And if it was an anomaly, where did that come from? No, that's exactly what he says. If you watch both senators from Virginia, if you watch him, Senator Kelly from Arizona, and if you see Chris Murphy, he's by far the worst. They are actually seemingly cheering for Iran, making sure that any type of Iran defiance is underlined and highlighted. And talking about this war being bungled from the day it started and saying it never should have happened when they're already on the record talking about Iran needed to be addressed in a nuclear program that can't take root. So I don't buy for 1 second that this is sarcasm.
Yeah, I think what happened is he got pushback from both sides, realized this was so anti-American. He probably sat with his team and said, okay, what should I say? And then they said, well, you could say it was sarcasm. And yeah, let's go with that one.
But see, I didn't see any Democrat pushing back. Maybe Fetterman, who went out of his way.
Fetterman said that he was really the only Democrat that was supporting this and what was happening. And if you watch other networks, they're all complaining about how long this is taking. And Donald Trump, 2 days ago. Go ahead, Lawrence. Well, I was just going to say, Donald Trump put on X how long all of the wars have taken. Years and years and years. This has been a few weeks.
The thing is that he may have put that on X, but he's not the only one that's rooting against the military and the president during this operation. We see it on the Sunday shows. We see it every night on the other networks saying that we're not winning, that the president is trapped, that the president has panicked, that he's caved. They're making jokes about it. So again, as I've said since the beginning of this conflict, what do you think the men and women that are fighting overseas, that their families that watch these programs every single night, what do they think about this? Do you not think they're perturbed that you're painting this military success so far as some type of win for the Iranians? I mean, just to be clear, most of these programs have been going with Iranian propaganda. Every time Iran puts something out and the president puts something out, they say Iran is right. So again, that's what we're working with.
Right. We got to just find a way to neutralize that mosquito navy that Iran has. And at the same time, they want us to end the blockade. We're not ending the blockade. So we'll see when J.D. Vance is going to make that 18-hour trip over to Pakistan.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows.
All righty. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the olive leaf extract. This is dual purpose. What it does is it helps to improve the immune system and your cardiovascular system. It's important to take supplements that are dual purpose so you save money. Now, it'll bring down inflammation and also help to control your lipid profile by helping to bring down LDL levels and help to improve your HDL levels. That's important because when you do that, you're reducing the concentration of oxidized LDL in your bloodstream, and that means that you're reducing the chance of plaque formation. So please go to my store, take the olive leaf extract, boost up your immune system and your cardiovascular system. A lot of people in the United States have cardiovascular disease. And guess what? Most of it is preventable. and reversible. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the resveratrol. Resveratrol helps with youthful gene expression, helps to get rid of cells that are in senescence. It also helps to boost up the health of your mitochondria. And we talked about already how important that is. By improving the health of your mitochondria, you're going to have more ATP. Resveratrol soaks up free radicals, so you're going to have less stress in your tissues. And resveratrol is great for your basal layer for your skin. This is part of the reason why taking resveratrol actually makes you look younger. It stacks really well with C60 to help with that basal layer health of your skin. So please go to my store, get the resveratrol and the C60, stack them together, and slow down the aging process. And lastly, pancreatic health, super important. Guess what? When you get older, your pancreas doesn't work as well. I don't care how healthy you are. You can be super healthy. I'm willing to bet your pancreas doesn't work as well as it was younger. Digestive enzyme complex helps to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. So the stress on your pancreas is less. So you're going to give your pancreas time to rest, to heal. And by doing that, you're giving your pancreas a longer life expectancy. Okay? So digestive enzyme complex will help to break up those proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids, allow you to absorb your nutrients, less stress on your digestive system. Also, digestive enzyme complex has bromelain, and bromelain is important for breaking up clots. Also, digestive enzyme complex has proteolytic enzymes to break up glycoproteins, which is super important during the cold season. This is why I keep on saying, oh, you should be taking digestive enzyme complex for the health of your pancreas, but also during certain times of the year, like the cold season. Just pay attention to me and you'll be fine. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift till supplies last. If you use discount 5 on any order, you get $5 off. I want you to save some money. Why? Because prices are higher. We have poor mismanagement of the Federal Reserve. We have higher energy prices. People's costs for goods and services are higher. It's called inflation. I want to help you. But if you also pay attention to how to trade the market, you'll be able to make money to offset those higher costs. So don't be a victim. Don't be for people that say, oh, inflation, inflation, inflation. Don't be a victim. You can make money on the situation and offset those added costs that you have. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The S&P 500 is now trading at 7,120. It's ticking up a little bit. VIX is pretty stable at 19, and oil is trading at $91.60. All right, this is General Kellogg talking about the issue that happened yesterday with the whole negotiations.
Finance the old way. Finance the ramp way.
What would you tell a man who can scroll for hours but can't work for 10 minutes and hates himself for it every night?
Russia, Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg is with us. So I got confirmation that the Pakistanis tried to explain in detail, almost begging the president, please give our peace opportunity a little more time. They don't have the ability to communicate with each other. For example, you might have the head of the IRGC in one place. You might have the people that are negotiating in another place. It's not like they can pick up a cell phone, General, and the president.
Too bad. Kill the enemy. The IRGC is nothing but an organization that funds and trains for terror. That's all they are. It's time to kill them off. Instead, let them reconstitute and get their act together? No, no. But of course, there's going to be people out there. Well, we can't have a war all the time, and this is just kicking the can down the road. And just imagine if Trump's not in office. Do you really think that we're going to have a president that's willing to get to this level? Of course not. J.D. Vance won't. J.D. Vance didn't even want to do this operation. Why? Because it's political expediency. So, are we going to see a president from the Democratic Party willing to deal with Iran? No. So we're going to kick the can down the road and have it worse off for the United States, where it costs more money, more collateral damage? Why don't you just get the job done now? It would have been better if we got the job done during Reagan's administration. He was afraid. It would have been better if we got the job done during Bush's administration, 41 and 43. But they were afraid. It would have been better if Clinton got the job done. They were afraid. See, this is the point. We have presidents that are weak in dealing with this theocratic regime in Iran.
Rightly pointing out, it's costing them $500 million a day. At some point, it is their entire economy. They can't survive much longer, regardless of who may think that they're in charge. So, again, it's the hard way or the easy way, is it not?
Yeah, Sean, thanks for having me tonight. Look, I would just say let's not negotiate anymore. Let's just walk away. Let's finish the job. And when you think about their fractured command and control, Vahedi's in charge of the IRGC. Under the Mosaic Doctrine, they've broken that down to 31 IRGC headquarters. And they've thought about fighting the United States. So my point to them being fractured in their leadership, which it is because of President Trump and what he has done, is I'd say let's create more problems for them and try to figure this out. That's why I keep going back to take something like Karg Island or seize the islands in the Strait of Hormuz with the Tripoli and Boxer args that you've got there. And you've got elements of the 82nd Theater. They can take Karg Island. And all of a sudden now you're creating and compounding the problem for them to try to solve. And I don't think they can solve it because they don't have the leadership left that can figure this out. And you now control it. You could put a provisional government if you want to on Karg Island and try to figure it out as well. But this is the whole way of trying to give them problems that they can solve. And constantly say we're going to negotiate, that's right out of their playbook. When you have somebody like Hawachi, who's their foreign minister, who wrote a book on negotiations, this was part of his negotiation strategy. He called it the market strategy. It's like being at a bazaar, trying to buy a rug, bartering back and forth. I would say, done, we're done. The president gave them ample opportunity. He was very gracious in an attempt to talk the way through it. Now let's just finish it out. And I think we can finish it out. We can strangle them economically. We're doing that with the blockade. Let's compound the problem. Not only do we have terrain, we've got the blockade as well. And instead of bombing like their power plants, bomb something that really hurts them. That's their fuel industry or something like that, instead of going after things that hurt the people. So I think we still have cards to play. The president sure does. I wouldn't bet against the president of the United States at all in this one.
All right, their currency is currently zero. It's worth nothing. They have 180 to 200% inflation rate. Half of their working population is no longer working. They're losing $500 million a day. That is 90% of their entire economy. The president, the military operation aspect of taking out their infrastructure and Karg Island, if he chooses to do that, wipes out their economy permanently. Now, there are outside forces the president's thinking about. He's been asked by the Pakistanis, we cannot get a hold of both sides inside of Iran for them to come up with their agreement. Can you give us a little more time? I don't think the president loses anything by giving them a little more time. They're still losing their economy in the process. The blockade has been 100% effective. So, and then I think in the back of the president's mind is like he knows that there's 90 million people that will be impacted by a very easy military decision, which is to wipe out this place.
Yeah, Sean, the problem, one of the principles of war, that are principles of war, is simplicity. And you want to make it as simple as you can, but you want to make it complicated for the other side. So you create problems for them. You give them options that they have to address at the same time. And they don't have the capacity, the capability to do that because they don't have people that are really experienced in that and are in charge. You look at somebody like Vahidi, if you look at his background, he's only there because we got rid of the last Revolutionary Guards leader, and now he's in charge of it. He's distributed his command and control to the 31 regions due to this mosaic doctrine they've got, and now you're asking them to do some command and control. They can't do it. So my point is you make it so hard for them, it eventually breaks. You compound the problem they've got. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do with the blockade, add to the problem. And I think if we do that, we keep adding pressure to them, they're eventually going to buckle. And then remember, the IRGC is not the Army. There's two separate activities. You've got the Army, which is twice the size of the IRGC, and you want to fragment them as well. And then you've got the IRGC, or zealots, and you look at a theocratic government, which are zealots. And now you look at the people that are trying to lead that, Kalibov, you look at Arashi and Vahidi, and they're all zealots, and you want to get rid of them as well. So you create friction for the Iranians that they cannot control. And I would just like to see the president do that more and more, keep ramping it up. There's ways to do it, not necessarily bomb stuff. We bombed the heck out of them already. And I'm sure there's still more on the target list, but you create problems for their leadership. And problems for the leadership is not that, oh, they just bombed this factory. It's command, control, and what they actually control in their economic standards, and take away that economic ability. So I would say eventually they're going to fall. If you want to take a long time, do it with a blockade. Do it with a shorter time, compound the problem, create issues for them that they have no ability to operate with and control.
One last part that doesn't get talked about enough in my view, and that is arming the Iranian people themselves. Very effective when Reagan armed the Contra rebels in Nicaragua. Very effective when the Mujahideen got Stinger missiles in their war.
I think it's a good idea, but I'm on the hard side when I say using military force, in the sense, use the agency's group that does that, their special operations group, or you use special forces to do it, go in with weapons. You just don't give them weapons to use. You actually have advisors with them to help them train that, and you create a guerrilla warfare. I think they're ready for that. They'll be able to do that, but you compound the problems they've got to try to solve. And that's what you want to do. You got to break their will. You got to break their command and control. And I think eventually they're going to fold. Economically, especially, the president has it right. He had the guts to do it.
All right, $500 million a day. That's a lot of money to lose in revenue.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver soap that I have in stock in peppermint. Get a few bars for your household. Please help support the work that I do by getting the great products on my store. And with this structural nano silver soap, you're going to be able to improve your skin and your pores, and it helps to neutralize because it has the structural nano silver. Very high quality soap that you should be using every day. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description. Now, I want to talk about really quickly here, collagen. This is a new product that I have on my store that will help to improve your joint health, either because you have osteoarthritis or a sports injury. You can rebuild the joint by taking the collagen. Now, collagen, what this will do is help to utilize collagen 2 and glucosamine to be able to rebuild the cartilage. It'll also help to utilize acan and chondroitin to cushion the joint. In addition, collagen will help to block the enzyme Ep4 and reduce inflammation. Also, it helps to block MMP3 and MMP13, which are enzymes that erode the joint. So if you block those, if you inhibit those, then you're stopping the erosion and you're allowing your joint to be able to be remodeled. This is a very powerful product. Please go to my store and get the collagen. You can stack it with the collagen that I'll be talking about later in the show. But if you have osteoarthritis, or if you have a sports injury and you want to heal the joint and you want to, get better movement out of the joint and less pain, take the collagen and do these exercises where whichever joints are the problem, what you want to do is you want to, let's say if you had a wrist issue, all right, and you had osteoarthritis in your wrist or a sports injury, And you want to move the wrist up to the point where you have pain and move it a little bit more. All right. Just a little bit past the pain point and hold it there for about 20 seconds and then release and then do that again. Do that a couple times a day. And eventually what you'll notice is that you're going to be able to have more articulation of the joint with less pain. So please go to my store, do these exercises, and take the collagen and the collagen together to help build up and repair that joint. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Let's go back to Bloomberg here.
It's going.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me on again. It's really kind of giving some mixed signals. I mean, things in March were looking a little bit dire by a lot of metrics. The purchase index that you just mentioned, fell to the lowest in quite some time. It was actually below for the same time of year what it was the previous 2 years after having been above. And today, with just a little bit greater uncertainty resolution, a little bit more certainty, I should say, and slightly lower mortgage rates, it jumped back up again, to the highest it's been since 2022. So, maybe all is not lost for the spring housing season. Interestingly, also non-seasonally adjusted pending home sales, which are a good metric of, potential resales in the next month or two, actually hit their highest since 2023 also. So, it was looking pretty dire. Pending home sales especially were really falling. And even with the greater uncertainty in March, those bounced up. So it feels like there might be more pent-up demand than, had appeared to be for a little while. So that could be good. But, and affordability is improving, but it's still pretty weak in a lot of the country.
And that's where I want to go to next, because the administration is trying to put the focus back on how and what it's doing to increase affordability, especially when it comes to housing. They talked about Fannie and Freddie buying $200 billion of mortgage-backed securities. What have we seen beyond that? And is there any evidence that that's working?
Yeah, I think spreads are tighter than they would be if the GSEs weren't buying. There was also rumors that they actually stepped up their purchases in March. We had expected, projected a kind of steady state $15 billion or so a month to get to the $200 billion over the course of the year. But there were rumors that they might have added a little bit more in March as spreads widened. So that would show that what they're doing is probably working a little bit, but we won't actually get the data on that for another few days. So that'll be something to keep an eye on to see, that'll give us a better sense of, are they really the backstop bid for how high mortgage rates can go, how wide mortgage spreads can be in times of stress like we saw in March.
So I'm looking at the INGO function on the Bloomberg terminal, the Bloomberg Index browser. I'm looking at the U.S. mortgage-backed security total return year to date, plus 0.9%. That's pretty good relative to the rest of fixed income. How are you thinking about, what are your clients telling you about the mortgage-backed securities market these days?
There's been a bit of volatility in those returns. We actually got back to negative year to date in March. But it just feels like there's a decent amount of demand behind the curtains. We did see even, we've seen a lot of great fund flows, but for a short time there, they went negative even in the ETF space. That might have been tax related too. It's hard to tell, happens in April. But, now we're back to full cylinder buying, it seems like. So I would say that the marginal investor is still very sensitive to returns and upside. But at the same time, it does feel like there's a good bit of support for the sector, both in banks, GSEs, funds, and even overseas.
I'm not refinancing my mortgage on the Jersey Shore compound.
No. I mean, you're sitting pretty. You're not looking to do that anytime soon. Erica, thank you so much. Erica Edelberg is our Chief Mortgage-Backed Securities Strategist here, talking us through the housing market and mortgage-backed securities. You look at the broader market overall, and it very much feels like this indefinite ceasefire has allowed investors to really refocus on earnings and the outlook for AI and growth prospects in the economy, as opposed to the headline-driven geopolitical news flow. So let's bring in Sarah Hunt, founding partner and chief market strategist at Alpine Saxon Woods, to give us her take on what she sees. The corporate profits that we've seen so far pretty good, but we are seeing also certain sectors like airlines really get hit hard by the rising oil prices and not being able to forecast out what things would look like. Is that a taste of what's to come, or are the bank's results and things that we're hearing from companies saying that everything is all guns blazing straight ahead is more kind of the assumption that investors are going with?
I think right now, from an investor standpoint, they're definitely thinking that we're getting all the good news and we're not getting any of the bad news, right? So I think that it's going to be sector by sector. I think that the longer this goes on, we've been saying all along, whatever's happening tactically in discussions and everything else, you need to see traffic get through the strait. Traffic is not getting through the strait. That is what's going to alleviate energy price issues and jet fuel shortages and all of these things that we're talking about right now. If those continue to get further, I think people will start to look at that earnings picture. Right now, they're assuming that we can fix this problem because it's a logistics problem. It's not actually a supply problem. But the longer the logistics get kinked up, the harder that is to solve. So I think that right now we're in a happy place that investors seem to have, but I'm concerned about seeing traffic get through that strait.
Another red headline crossing the Bloomberg terminal. Why not? Trump administration nears $500 million rescue deal for Spirit Airlines. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. I guess we'll see how that plays out there, but that's a good news for
So does the government end up becoming a shareholder of Spirit in the same way that it was in companies during the financial crisis?
Yeah, we'll see. There's lots of creative ways this administration can do that, so we'll see how that plays out. Sarah, talk to us about stocks, bonds, alternatives here. How are you leaning these days? Where do you think the best value is out there?
Well, I think you did see a period of time where the concerns about CapEx, and we're going to see how earnings come out this week too. This is going to be really important. I think that if there's any wobble or if there's any concern by investors that you're not going to see returns on some of this massive CapEx that the technology firms are spending or anything else, then I think that you have some potential for downside volatility. If the earnings look pretty good and the spend looks pretty good, again, we're not yet at the point where the impact of higher energy prices are flowing through earnings because we're still behind a little bit that jump in energy prices. So for the tech sector, it's not as much of an issue. For airline consumer sectors, it absolutely is because that lower cohort of spending is going to have a much harder time when you have higher gas prices. Having said that, retail sales are fairly great. So then you think that, okay, people are looking through this. UMich numbers are terrible. Retail sales are great. Who are you going to believe? I think you have to believe the hard data and not the soft data. So we'll see how that plays out.
If you think about retail sales, again, because I do think about the sentiment data, but what we're all being told about this K-shaped economy is becoming even more pronounced. The upper part of the K has even more buying power.
We just need them to keep spending.
And they have been,
right?
I guess is the point.
They have been until, I don't know, something happens.
Stock market decline is my call.
So you got to keep the stock market buoyant if you're looking for retail sales and spending to continue. You mentioned that when it comes to big tech, a lot's going to depend on CapEx and whether that looks okay. How do we know what looks okay?
I think it's what investors are okay with them spending. When I say looks okay, it's to the investor class, right? Because you had this massive move in CapEx and it was lauded by everybody. People bid up the shares. They were like, great, you're spending more. That's fantastic. You're going to win this race. And then all of a sudden CapEx became sort of like a dirty word. Like, wait, you have to borrow money to do this? Oh no, we don't want to see that. We want to see you just using your cash flow. You're also becoming a more investment heavy as opposed to, a investment light company. So I think that how that plays out, and do we start to see returns, and when do we start to see them, and what do they look like? And I think all of that is intertwined. And as long as there is some ability for those companies to say, yes, we're spending the money, but we see that we're going to get this return, and people are okay with that, it's really, it's about the reaction function and not so much about the level, I think, going forward.
So, Sarah, that kind of goes to, I'm not sure where we are with the AI story now, because I thought I had it going, and then this war came along, then I kind of lost my train of thought on AI. Is the market really trying to discern winners and losers here? That's kind of tough to do. Like, I don't think some of these big software companies are really going to lose business to AI, but that's kind of what the market was saying earlier this year.
Well, the market was definitely down on software. There does tend to be a sort of rotation into sectors where all of a sudden AI is going to eat their lunch and it's going to be terrible. And then I think there's a realization that there's probably going to be more of an and than an or, that some of those companies are going to survive. The question is the growth that they were putting up, the cash flow that they were putting up on the software side, can you maintain that even in the face of some of this, the discussion we're having on Anthropic right now? Go in and look at all my code and try to fix it. Like all of that is, what does that mean for the growth of some of those industries? And I think the question is, people still don't know, but I think that they were counting them as completely over, and I don't think it's completely over. I think it's just going to be a shift.
Isn't the risk that things could change very quickly on a dime? As much visibility as companies can offer right now, all it takes is for one thing to happen, and then they're kind of left in the dark.
I think it's really tough with visibility right now. You have a combination of things besides logistical hiccups and the energy problems and the other things that have come out of the Gulf that we don't talk about as much, but people have talked about the helium, they've talked about the naphtha, they've talked about some of the other things that come through there. You also just have an ever-changing global narrative that makes it difficult to be very...
There's a very interesting... There's a very interesting documentary that I saw last weekend. If I can dig it up, maybe I'll play it. But it's about the perception of the hyperscalers and them building their facilities, their server facilities. That a lot of what they're saying they're building is in the planning phase and not actually breaking ground. And a lot of the consumption of these chips by NVIDIA is really just being consumed by these hyperscalers and they're putting them in inventory. They're not actually implementing them yet. And so the problem comes in is that, well, the longer you have them in stock, all right, even though you haven't built your server farm yet, you will have new chips that are developed by these companies like NVIDIA with more capability. So the chips that you have in stock will actually be subpar. They'll have less performance. So there's this almost like there's going to be a reckoning that happens with NVIDIA in its stock price. Because if NVIDIA is selling these chips, the hyperscalers aren't building the farms quick enough, all right, and a lot of them are on hold, are partially created, then these hyperscalers may say, you know what, we're not going to buy any chips right now. And then all of a sudden, sales will start to fall for NVIDIA. So I would be very, very careful about investing in NVIDIA. Because if this documentary is right about their assessment of the hyperscalers, then NVIDIA's stock is overvalued. You know, think about it. How many server farms are actually made and are actually implemented? How many? And a lot of them are scared that they're not going to have enough chips. So there's like, and a lot of them are scared of just the equipment from GE and some of this, you know, cooling equipment and electrical equipment, and, you know, just the equipment that is these larger machines, not just the servers, but just the machines to run the server farm and the energy and the generators and all the stuff, the cooling systems, the HVAC systems. They've been buying this in such large quantity that there are shortages. So certain hyperscalers are concerned that they will be left out, and so they're just overbuying and keeping it in storage, even though they don't have the server farm yet. So there may be a bubble here, especially in NVIDIA. And if people start to pay attention and the word is more known that the server farms are somewhat slow to actually be created, and that they're not building out as fast as we thought they were, then perhaps Oracle and some of these other companies, OpenAI, maybe they're overvalued. And maybe there is going to be an AI bubble. I'd be very careful about investing in AI directly. What I'm also concerned about is the S&P 500 so weighted to these hyperscalers. This is the reason why you may want to, if you're going to do some investing, you may want to be a little bit more broader in your investment index investment. You know, such as, let's say, the Russell 3000, 2000, or 1000. I think the Russell 1000 is a good indicator of a broader base of of the nation than the S&P 500. But because it's market cap weighted, the S&P 500. So I think there is a bubble starting to arise. And I thought it was very interesting that these hyperscalers are buying chips and they're not even using them because they're afraid they're not going to have enough of them. And so that means that there's overbuying. There's almost like an artificial demand for the chips for NVIDIA. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this stack that will help with your cardiovascular health and your immune system. Really important. Lignans helps with the immune system, the endocrine system, soaks up free radicals, brings down inflammation. Turmeric brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals. And ashwagandha root brings down cortisol levels and helps you to control your blood glucose levels. Super important to reduce inflammation and help with your cardiovascular system. Now, when you stack this together, it's a very powerful stack. All right. This is going to have this stack, the turmeric, the lignans, and the ashwagandha root is going to boost up that immune system. By soaking up those free radicals and keeping down inflammation, you're helping your cardiovascular health, but you're also helping with your brain function by bringing down that inflammation, soaking up those free radicals, and getting better perfusion to the brain. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the lignans, the turmeric, and the ashwagandha, take them together. You can take them separately, but you take them together, there's a synergistic effect to slow down the aging process. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the ashwagandha root, the turmeric, and the lignans. Super powerful stack. All right. And you add some other stuff to it, it's even more powerful, like C60, Max 35, Boomer Boost. So make sure that you use discount 5 and you get $5 off. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Alrighty, let's see here. You want to listen to Cash Jordan? California collapses. And see what's happening in California.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure thing.
How much do you spend on groceries per week?
Like $150, $200. 200 probably, 150.
At least 175.
Enough's enough. For 33 years, Adam Stauber has owned this building on Montague Street, a street that he says for the past 2 or so years has been overrun by broken down RVs.
So, homelessness in California, while that's nothing new over the last couple of months, things are getting worse, with businesses and locals unable to live normal lives as they are surrounded by ever-expanding RV encampments. And while California's leaders attempt to blame President Trump for their self-induced unaffordability, the state itself is undergoing a mass exodus that could cause it to collapse.
The Skid Row of the Valley, furniture, satellite dishes, and trash of all sorts now block the sidewalks.
The exodus continues. We've got shocking new figures showing Los Angeles losing tens of thousands of residents, one of the biggest population drops in the nation. Experts pointing to soaring costs, shrinking opportunity, and policy failures driving people out.
We are like scared all the time.
She's concerned about retaliation for speaking out about the RV encampment along her street in Pacoima. She says over the past 2 years, while the RVs have grown in number, their quality of life has gone down.
Other vehicles pull up like clockwork. 25 masked thieves swarm in. The entire heist takes just 70 seconds. The bad guys are in and out with $1.7 million worth of jewelry.
This state's unaffordable. We have the highest gas prices in the United States of America. We have the highest utility costs in the continental United States and the highest home prices. It happened under our watch.
So it's one thing to be unaffordable, but when the companies that could help you fix that, like these home builders, when they shut down and leave, it's time to act. act fast. And what nobody's talking about is the unaffordability complex here. It doesn't just disenfranchise people, it also disenfranchises companies. And when they leave, they take their people with them. I mean, just look at this. How do you run a business in a neighborhood surrounded by a humanitarian crisis local leaders keep saying they're going to deal with, but never seem to? You can't, and this inaction has led to a point where customers are too afraid to walk down the street, much less pull out their wallet and spend money in a place where there are very few police around at all, if any, to protect them. A problem that's leading to mass lawlessness everywhere, with lootings and raids of companies that were once profitable happening on the regular, like this gang of thieves that struck a jewelry store and cleared it out in 70 seconds for a 7-figure payday.
70 seconds for $1.7 million stealing from a jewelry store. And here, like I've been saying for years, it's about God, country, and family. If you do not hold true to those pillars, you're going to have a degrading society. And this is the perfect example where they feel as though it's okay to steal from people. They feel that because they can get away with it, they should be able to steal. That's how they feel. Why? And if you are doing these sorts of things, you don't have an affinity to God, because one of the 10 commandments is thou shalt not steal. But not only that, they don't have an affinity to their country either, because they're willing to degrade the country and the society that they live in, their local society. They don't have some sort of virtue of uplifting the society that they live in. They don't have a sense of duty of country. They don't have some sort of virtue. This is the problem in America. It's gotten to Lululemon, dressing like a slob, talking like a slob, and thinking that anything goes because of some postmodern agenda or some postmodern philosophy. The problem here is that people need to start pushing back. If you don't start fixing the problem of making sure that people get that affinity to God, country, and family, we're going to lose our civilization. Now look at that. They're all hooded up, but I'm willing to bet there is a strong demographic of the types of people that their ethnicity that are doing this. What? This is a problem. And there's the district attorneys, they don't really want to solve the problem. They don't want to go after them. They want to just let them go. This is the reason why even in New York, you're starting to have problems. This country needs more conservative ideals, not liberal ideals, in the sense of, these socialistic ideals, all right? We don't want socialistic ideals. We need more conservatism. If we don't have this conservatism, we're going to lose our prowess. Just look around your society. Look around where you go to. You go to the grocery store, you go to the theater, or you go to work. Just take a look at how people are dressing now. Look at how people are acting. Think about how they're not really thinking anymore. Now there's a lot of problems with that. Some of it is cost of living is too high. Some of it is too much social media. Some of it is not enough education. Some of it is poor upbringing. There's a lot of factors involved. But people need to look in the mirror and say, the society is degrading, and what can you do? That small little grain of sand, what can you do to make the society better? And if enough people do that, then the society will be better. The individual can do a lot by convincing other individuals to have a little bit more God, country, and family in their life, all right? Not the Lululemon ultra lib life. It's time for women to actually dress appropriately. It's time for guys to actually man up and be a gentleman. It's time for our society to actually be a better society, reach our full potential, reach our full virtue. No, there's a lot of just this, A lot of this stuff that's happening, 70 seconds and $1.7 million heist. It's wrong. It's just wrong.
Cause your businesses to pack up and leave because there won't be anything left for them to sell or do here, which means an exodus is the only reasonable option. And that brings us to the real reason California's got such a problem. It's not just the rich who found out about a new wealth tax that's causing them to leave. It's everybody. It's the middle class. And while there might be a few high-profile billionaires that decide to pack their bags and hit the road, when your families pack up and leave, there will be no future generation of taxpayers to exploit. After all, how can you raise a family in a place that encourages crime and not expect your kids to get swept up in that? Because the legal system here does absolutely nothing but release those who commit the same offense over and over again, teaching them crime must not be that big of a deal because the consequences aren't that big of a deal. However, this has caused a massive problem for California because in order to fund all of this mayhem and sustain itself, they're going to need money from the people who are leaving for things like this.
Now we are here outside of Healthy Life Adult Daycare. This place, over the past few years, has billed $19.8 million alone. Now let's go see if I can enroll my grandma.
Nobody's here already. You have to come back tomorrow.
And could we get like a brochure to enroll our grandma into this location?
I don't have anything.
And look, all they have to say that they are an adult day healthcare is that sign that says ADHC. And there was some people working inside of it. We have the phone number right here.
You can leave a message after the tone. This mailbox is full.
Right. So the law-abiding, they can't afford to live here, but they got to pay for all the fraud. They got to pay for all the crime. They got to pay for things that do not benefit them at all. Nor does the money paid to the government here benefit the needy, who are used as the constant excuse for ever higher living expenses and taxes. And because it's the law-abiding who are punished and demonized while being expected to support all of these industrial complexes like the fraud industrial complex and the homeless industrial complex, they're leaving, they're taking everything with them. And as you're about to see California, it might be past the point of no return.
Navon, the business travel platform where employees book their own trips, while customizable policies keep your budget intact. Employees earn personal travel credits for booking under budget at no extra cost to your company.
This state's unaffordable. We have the highest gas prices in the United States of America. We have the highest utility costs in the continental United States and the highest home prices. It happened under our watch. This wasn't because of Donald Trump. This was because of policies that we created.
That's wild. You've got this fundamental sinkhole California's fallen into and it can't seem to get out of because its policies won't let it out. Because funding fraud and nonprofits, that's the name of the game here. It's the status quo that refuses to go away while the problems these organizations hope to solve keep growing. And this is a problem because the longer fraudulent activity continues to be the name of the game in California, the more legitimate sectors of society not only need to stick around to keep paying for all this, but are leaving, which is the opposite of what California wants. All because this is a place that does not believe at all in allowing people to help their fellow man. They think that is un-American. And now we're seeing things in California that aren't present anywhere else in the country.
Enough's enough. For 33 years, Adam Stauber has owned this building on Montague Street, a street that he says for the past 2 or so years has been overrun by broken down RVs. Skid Row of the Valley.
Why do you call it that?
I mean, just
That's crazy.
Furniture, satellite dishes, and trash of all sorts now block the sidewalks. And Adam said,
yeah, this doesn't feel like a very welcoming environment to have right outside your business where you're trying to get customers to come in and spend money, does it? And of course, this entire situation should not be happening at all. But in order for it to get to the level you see on the screen, It has to be manufactured. And it is. California is spending billions of dollars keeping things this way. And as we've been learning over the last few months, there is collusion between the crisis industrial complex, whatever that crisis is, in this case, homelessness, and local politicians who spend the public's money in the name of solving all of these problems by turning it over to the nonprofits and orchestrators of programs that are supposed to be helpful.
There's a lot of corruption in nonprofit, even at the low, very low nonprofit level. All right. The very small nonprofit level. They set up a nonprofit and there's a kickback, there's fraud, but it's also happening in large nonprofits too. But the fraud is not so blatant. It's a little bit more pernicious. They have so much power that they can actually lead to further crises by pushing, well, we want open borders and we want, more immigration. And then these people that come in, that are illegal, they get programs, and these programs come from the federal government or the state government. And these programs are administered by nonprofits, and so there's a cycle. For the nonprofit to make money, they need further illegal immigration, for example. So it's a big problem. It's a very big problem, and maybe we should curtail on how many nonprofits there are. Maybe we need more regulation of these nonprofits. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the magnesium and zinc. This will help to boost up your immune system and your brain function. Magnesium also improves the efficacy of vitamin D3. And vitamin C and magnesium helps with your immune system, your skin, and your brain function. Super important. Take them together to get the max benefit. You should be taking it every day. Most people do not take enough magnesium to help with slowing down the aging process for their brain. And vitamin D3, like I said, magnesium increases the efficacy of vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is super important to take every day. It will help to build denser bone by doing resistance training and taking in calcium. But also, vitamin D3 is a gene expression cofactor, so your cells perform properly. And vitamin D3 helps the cardiovascular health. And vitamin D3 is super important for your immune system. Why? Because if a cell is infected, it allows the cell to go into apoptosis if you have enough vitamin D3. A lot of times when the cell is infected, it's hijacked and it can't go into apoptosis. Well, vitamin D3 helps for that cell to go into apoptosis and gets rid of that cell. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure you use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Please click the link in the description to go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
But never seem to accomplish anything. And every single year, the problems here get worse and worse. And now you got residents who look outside and they're like, what's going on?
The 4- and 2-legged inhabitants of the campers aren't always exactly friendly.
Oh, they're not friendly.
Adam says one of his tenants, who is paying $80,000 a month for 60,000 square feet of space, is now leaving because their clients didn't enjoy coming in.
$80,000 a month. That's what you get to run your business. $80,000 a month. Now look at this behind the fence here. It looks rather nice, but you can't even enter the driveway with your vehicle without running over the edge of this skid right here. This is crazy. That's not going to work. That's not sustainable. But what you're seeing here is the conflict between what the scammers and fraudsters controlling California want and what the people of California who have to pay for all the fraud and scams here actually want. Scammers want the largest crisis possible so they can point to it and say, see, we need more money. See, the good work we do isn't going far enough. Something politicians are all too eager to get behind. And now regular people are starting to figure all this out, and they're either leaving or they're sticking around and complaining about it while they pack their bags.
Whoa. What's that? I just built a budgeting app in Base 44.
Guys, Nina just built an app.
Impossible.
Why did you reach out to Channel 7?
You can manage multi-million-dollar, $150 million company for budgeting in forecasting, even if you want a rolling budget and build a dashboard to track it in Excel. You don't need base 44. You don't need to make apps. The people that are doing that are people that really don't know how to make the models in Excel. I mean, we are being sold a bill of goods about AI that is going to add all of this capability and all of this productivity. And the reality of the situation is that it probably won't. It's going to be just a fraction of what the hype is. And eventually it'll reach an S curve where there are people that are building scripts and applications for their business. And eventually, how many more applications do you really need? Especially in the back office. The back office doesn't change that much. So it'll reach an S curve in two years. So everyone has been told, this is the reason why people were told to go into coding, and then 2 years later, they said, well, that's kind of dried up. Go to analytics. 2 years later, it dried up. And then now the same thing in AI. 2 years from now, it's going to dry up. Watch. Because it reaches an S curve quickly because they're building stuff and creating capability that most companies don't need. Just keep it simple. Make your life simple. Like Steve Jobs said, it takes a lot of effort to just get to the simplicity. Just keep it simple. Just shed the stuff that you don't need. That's in your life, but that's also in your company. You don't need all of this extra gadgetry that is being sold to your business. You don't need it. Just keep it simple. If you can do mergers and acquisitions in Excel, you can manage multiple millions of dollars in Excel. There is zero reason why you need some sort of customized dashboard. It's not needed. It's not needed. People need to prove that this added capability is really going to make your business more productive. If you don't have the dashboard, you're not running, more complex models in Excel or in Access, then, you're behind the times. But you don't need all of this AI. The average business doesn't need AI. GE doesn't need the AI.
Because I've been reaching out to the council office for the past 2 years with no results. It's not only hurting me, it's hurting all the other businesses in the area.
2 years, a lot of no results. Companies, and their first questions, what's going on outside?
Andy Rado runs
aerospace. Aerospace companies have to be here. This is where they are. This is where your aerospace company is. Does anybody wonder why Tesla and SpaceX and all this stuff are not here? I know there are geographic reasons for why SpaceX is where it is, but come on, this is not a place that's going to attract aerospace companies, even though California is on the coast. No wonder this place has problems. And this is a big issue for California because it's businesses that are paying 80 grand a month that sustain places like California. And if they leave, it's over. No one's going to come in and take a place that was previously occupied for $80,000 a month and pay anything close to it if it forces them out. And why is this happening? Well, California is not bright enough to figure out how to make their streets clean and safe, the two things the law-abiding care about. But what they are really great at is using what the streets look like to make people feel like they need to do more, even though they're already doing more than many other people in this country pay to live where they live.
Israel Gambert has a medical device company next door.
We service people with disabilities, so we have people, pull in, and it's not a very comforting experience.
And just take a look a few blocks down Montague Street when it hits San Fernando Road.
The homeless people have more rights than we do. If we park our car outside, we get cited. They don't get cited.
Ooh, look at that. See, you have a two-tier justice system here. You have business owners like this guy who, if they need a parking spot, they're going to get a ticket if they take one where they're not supposed to park. Meanwhile, you have a vehicle here, which could have a license plate on it, doesn't, and is just allowed to be on the street perpetually. That's crazy. But you know something? It really exposes the other issue that these blue state unaffordability bastions have. If you're law-abiding, they're coming for you. If you're lawless, well, you're protected. And that's because in these places, the lawless, no matter what their lawless activity is, it is viewed as something that should be excused. Yet if you're fortunate enough not to be in dire straits, you obey the laws, you put a license plate on your car, you have a business, it's registered, it's legit. If there's garbage outside the business, who's responsible for cleaning it up? If you park your car where you're not supposed to, or you drive it down the highways, they're gonna hit you. They hit the law abiding. They're very good at tracking down people who are willing to obey the law. Those are the people who get punished. The lawless, who either obey the law or are unable to pay these fines. Well, no system exists to hold that accountable. And what happens? It just grows. Something should definitely be done to help the people living in these street shacks on the street, but that's not how the system here is designed to work. It's not designed to help those people. It's designed to help well-connected nonprofits, but not the people who those nonprofits exist to serve.
They don't get cited.
The business owners here say at night this street is completely dark, and no surprise there. Take a look. It's clear that some of these electrical wires are being cut, and there are cords running into some of the trailers. With utility cords now rerouted across the street and street lights rewired, rubbish.
Look at this.
Cooking
cords. What's going on here? You have people tapping into the power grid to power things on the street, which is completely illegal, and it's just allowed to go on. That's just allowed to happen. That's very dangerous. And what does that do to people's electric bills? You've got the law-abiding who are living in a home or have a business which has a utility bill, and if the power company's getting robbed between where the power comes from and where their business is, guess whose rates are going to be higher? All the people that live in these neighborhoods. So you're pinching the law-abiding every way possible. You've got crime that's out of control. You've got a homeless industrial complex.
This is the problem with socialism. This is the problem with God, country, and family being eroded. If you do not hold true to the ideals of the Enlightenment, this is what happens. This is why it's so important that we stop socialism. We stop communism. We need people to get their act together. And when there's a structural problem in terms of unemployment, when the next recession comes, and we don't know when it will, but when it does, it's most likely going to be structural. It's not going to be cyclical. So you're going to have more of this problem. Society is out of control. Society is devolving.
It just grows every single year, doesn't solve anything. People are expected to pay for that. And now their utility bills are going up. We got the highest utility bills. We got problems here that should not exist if you had law and order, which is the solution for unaffordability. Unaffordability comes from the fact that things are happening which shouldn't be allowed to happen at all. But what are local politicians doing? What do they have to say about the crisis we're watching right here?
Do you feel her office is being receptive and listening to your concerns?
No, not at all.
Well, that's contrary to the actual work of what we've delivered in that area.
What work?
The council member says her office has helped move 67 people from 22 RVs along this long row.
Look, I see a lot of RVs here. 67 people might sound like a lot. I'm glad they helped someone, but they're not doing enough. They need to do more. But the problem is their policies don't allow them to do more. In many of these places, they've got policies that just allow people to live on the streets full time. And that right there is inhumane. It's done in the name of humanity, telling people, hey, you can live on the streets as long as you want. You can live in the subway in New York. You can live in an RV in California. We're just going to let you do that. We believe in freedom and autonomy. Meanwhile, the folks that are living in these situations, they don't know that there are better options out there for them. And they may be in a situation where they think that those options are wrong for them, and nobody is allowed to stage an intervention and do what you or I would do if we had a family member that was living in a situation like this. If we had a family member that was living in an RV in California, we would fly over there and we would get them out of there. We would help them. But the state can't do that because its laws don't allow it. In fact, its laws say that, oh, that's wrong. Meanwhile, as all of the fraud in California has come to the surface over the last several months, something incredible has happened. Local politicians who are just bewildered that things they're doing every single day don't exactly look that great optically and are now being exposed. Well, instead of helping people and doing what they should do to protect the general public and going after these fraudsters, they're doing something else to make sure that their schemes continue in perpetuity. Listen to this.
YouTuber Nick Shirley calling out a proposed California bill that he claims would criminalize investigative journalism, including his viral efforts to expose fraud in the state.
The author of this bill, which is California Assembly Bill 2624, is Democratic Assemblywoman Mia Bonta. And if her last name sounds familiar, it is. In fact, her husband is the Attorney General of California, Rob Bonta. So Republicans have nicknamed this bill the Stop Nick Shirley Act, and it aims to, quote, protect the privacy and stop the payer-funded organizations around recording and nicknamed this bill the Stop Nick Shirley Act, and it aims to, quote, protect the privacy and stop the harassment of those who provide services to immigrants. It would put into place restrictions.
Okay, so the wife of the Attorney General, the person who's supposed to prosecute fraud, has a bill in the assembly which is going to stop people from harassing organizations that aid immigrants. Now, this is a sanctuary state. They don't know who's an immigrant here legally, illegally. They don't check immigration status, which means this affects every business. And now the goal is to stop somebody with a camera from seeing something on the side of the road, recording it, and giving their opinion on what they see happening. If you see a daycare center and only grown men enter that facility once or twice a week, park their BMWs outside, you never see any children there, you better not film that place. That's going to be a criminal offense now if you film that place and put that on the internet. That's not investigative journalism. That's harassment. And the goal here is to shut that down because that's exposing this entire system of corruption.
Recording and posting content, including names and workplace or home addresses of those who work for these taxpayer-funded organizations.
What a scam.
Anyone who posts these videos or photo could be subject to a $10,000 fine, jail time, and even forced to take the content down.
So you take a photo of what you perceive to be criminal activity, which is being committed in public and being funded by the government, and that could cost you $10,000.
Nick Shirley, who built a large online following investigative alleged fraud, says the bill could end up criminalizing investigative journalism.
That's what it does.
For instance, if this bill is passed, the Quality Learning Center that was in Minnesota would be protected from being exposed.
Wow.
That is absolutely crazy.
That's wild.
So Assemblywoman Mia Bonta says this is about protecting privacy and preventing harassment and doxing for the workers who work at these taxpayer-funded organizations who, again, provide services to immigrants. She said,
doxing is not when you are filmed in a business with a public entrance located on the side of the street that welcomes in customers. Doxing is when someone gives out your personal address, your first name, your last name, and where you live. It has nothing to do with exposing a government business, which is regulated, where everything is online, who owns it and whatnot. It's almost like they're making up justifications for why they need a law that would protect fraudsters and criminals.
Individuals who were investigating were journalists. This bill it ensures that we protect lawful free speech and opportunity for criticism.
California Democrat politicians not only won't do anything about the fraud, but they're going after the people who are trying to uncover these crimes and the waste of taxpayer money. It is shameful, and all of these politicians ought to be called on the carpet.
But they're on the take. That's the problem. They're getting money.
So this bill has already passed through the first committee, and if it does become law, Republican Assemblyman Carl DeMaio, who you just heard from at the end there, says this is sure to face a legal battle.
But in the meantime, it's going to pass. They will have a legislative session to stop the exposition of criminal activity in their state, but they will not have a legislative session to stop criminal activity in their state. Isn't that interesting? That's why the law-abiding have such a problem in California. That's why people are leaving. How do you live in an environment that is going to punish every single thing that is done to improve the place? Let me know. I'll see you in the next video.
Tired of sifting through jobs that don't feel like the right fit?
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and improve your health and your wellness. Get the Max 35 or the Cleanse. All right. Cleanse is 30 parts per million. Max 35 is 35 parts per million. Take a teaspoon a day every day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds or so. And what this will do is help to improve your oral cavity, your oral pharynx, maintain your mucosal barrier, and help the health of your epithelial cells. It'll help to boost up your immune system. And you're neutralizing. Super important to do every day, teaspoon a day every day. This is something I've been doing for more than 6 years, every day. If you're not feeling well because of a cold, or you've been cleaning in the yard or in the garage and you're exposed to dust, take a tablespoon or two and help to neutralize. Super important, especially during the cold season. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Max 35 or the cleanse, and boost up that immune system. And it's part of my anti-aging protocol. And that anti-aging protocol, the foundation, probiotics, and the multivitamin on my store. The first pillar, the Max 35 or cleanse. Second pillar, C60. Third pillar, turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans. And the fourth pillar, Boomer Boost. And when you do that every day, you're slowing down the aging process radically, all right? Because you got all the ingredients, everything you're attacking, you're getting high concentrations to help to slow down that aging process and get healthy. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And a little trick, if you're having a breathing problem, guess what? Take a tablespoon or so of Max 35 and gargle and then swallow, all right? And then after that, take the C60. Take a teaspoon of the C60, and what you're going to be noticing is that you're neutralizing and you're starting to bring down inflammation. And when you're doing that, the bronchioles will actually open up and you'll be able to breathe a little bit better. All right? So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take my advice. You'll slow down the aging process. Make sure you use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. And don't you want free gifts? I'm sure you do. Please go to my store and get the lozenges and the drops. You can get orange splash lozenges and the Manuka honey, very high quality. They are made from structural nanosilver. The moment you have that throat irritation, take them right away. Cold season or the allergy season, or even if you're just spring cleaning your house. And the drops, you can get it in honey and lemon or in cherry flavor. You spend $100 or more, you get a free gift. And you like free gifts, don't you? So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great products that I offer. All right, Trump has stated a new deadline, so let's listen into it live now.
Looking for a way to get a U.S. green card without depending on an employer to sponsor you? Many highly educated...
I do want to bring in Fleur Hassan Ahun. She is Israel's special envoy for trade and innovation. Joining us live here on Live Now from Fox. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Christine.
I want to start with President Trump extending the ceasefire indefinitely. What does that actually signal? Is that a genuine effort to de-escalate or a pause to regroup?
Well, I actually think it's very strategic because what President Trump has managed to do, people don't give him enough credit, is he's flipped the dynamic. In the past, with other presidents and other governments and other world leaders, Iran always had time on their side. They kept pushing things, they kept lying, they kept negotiating, they kept getting to the edge until they would negotiate again. And what President Trump has done is flipped the script so that now time is not on their side because of the blockade of the Straits of Hormuz, which is their main way of bringing in any type of resources, any type of money. Their only economy is an energy export economy. That is what funds their terrorism. That is what funds their terrorist infrastructure. And what President Trump has done is basically blocked their only way of having an income. And so it's okay that President Trump wants to extend the ceasefire because the ceasefire right now and the blockade is only working against them.
3 to 5 days for
the
talks.
U.S. is extending this ceasefire. Why suspend Vice President J.D. Vance's trip to Pakistan? Does that suggest diplomacy might be stalling there behind the scenes?
Well, the Iranian regime didn't confirm that they were going to be going to Islamabad. So why would the vice president show up when there's a risk or there was actually a statement that they weren't showing up? That would be terrible. So ultimately, what's really happening is incredible. Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, is still up a very tall tree, and they don't realize that they don't have a lot of cards left. And like I said, time is not on their side. And so President Trump can keep extending the ceasefire as long as he keeps the blockade. The Islamic Republic is really losing any leverage for any future negotiations.
Now, also of note here, Iran acknowledged the extension, but stopped short of committing to talks. How should we interpret Tehran's hesitation right now? I know we've touched on this a little bit here, but just diving a little bit deeper for our viewers.
Sure. Well, you know, what everybody's saying, what everybody's reporting is that nobody knows who exactly is in charge, or at least that the leadership there is split. That you have the IRGC, which is the military commanders. And most of them were eliminated by America and Israel. But whoever's left, they're the hardliners. And then you have some of the political leadership that is trying to find a way to keep the negotiations alive, because they understand the position that the Islamic Republic is in. The hardliners, we don't know what's going on with them. We don't even know if Mujtaba Khamenei, who's supposedly the supreme leader, we don't even know if he's alive. In the last 24 hours, there were reports that he's dead, but they're trying to keep it quiet because that, again, brings down their leverage for the negotiations. So ultimately what we see, whatever way you want to look at this, is a weakening of the leadership of the Islamic Republic of Iran. A split, a divide is also essentially a weakening. And if it is that the hardliners are in charge and they're still up this very tall tree, they're only going to end up being cut down from that tree by President Trump and this current strategy.
And continuing to talk about these talks, taking a live look there out of Pakistan this morning. So Pakistan set to host those negotiations. How significant is it that Iran hasn't agreed to show up in Islamabad?
If you're not using a business travel platform like Navan, you're really missing out. Hi, I'm Ellie, and I'm the People Operations Specialist at St.
Well, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone. I think, Pakistan is really trying to remain relevant, trying to remain an honest broker. I'm not, my personal opinion is they're not that honest. They have their own jihadi issues there. They have their own extremists, mixed history on how they dealt with those extremists. But if nobody's showing up, then really, what is their value as mediators at this point? It may change. We'll have to see.
And we've been talking about those attacks we've been seeing in the Strait of Hormuz. Once again, here's that live simulation of that map this morning. Seeing those attacks on commercial vessels there, how much does that undermine the credibility of this ceasefire?
Well, from my understanding, the American fleet there is making sure that no Iranian Islamic Republic of Iran ships are getting through. They've got an entire shadow fleet because this is sanctioned oil. And so the Americans are doing the job of maintaining the blockade, which strategically is the way to bring down the Islamic Republic to their knees for either future negotiation or hopefully for their fall. Because ultimately, I really don't believe you can make a deal with the devil. It's, it's like if after the Second World War, you started negotiating with the Nazis to see what they were going to keep. It's impossible. I pray for the people of Iran and for the peace of our region that this very poisonous regime that has been feeding terrorism, that has been feeding Islamic fundamentalism, not just in their country, in the region and around the world, that has caused so much death, so many deaths of Americans, of Israelis, and of people all around the world. We pray here that they fall, and I believe that this is the right and very smart strategy that President Trump is doing.
And I wanted to share here with you this post. This is just coming in from Axios, and I just wanted to read it for our viewers. It says, President Trump is giving Iran's warring factions a short window to unify behind a coherent counteroffer or the ceasefire he extended Tuesday ends. 3 U.S. officials sharing that, saying President Trump is willing to give another 3 to 5 days of ceasefire to allow the Iranians to get their expletive together. That's one U.S. source speaking on the matter. It's not going to be open-ended. What are your thoughts in response to that post here that is just coming in from Axios?
Well, I believe that, President Trump has always given the opportunity for negotiations, but he has also, when he's realized that they're not serious about negotiation, this has happened, it happened last year in June, and it happened earlier this year. When he realizes they're playing...
the problem is that he's realizing too late. And secondly, everyone's been warning him that the Iranians do this all the time. All the time. This is the same problem that they had with Hezbollah and Hamas in Israel. They don't really want to negotiate peace. They want war. This is part of the Shiite religion. And people need to wake up to this, including the America First pacifists. The only way to solve this problem is to kill the enemy. We have to kill the IRGC. It has to be destroyed. It's that simple. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. Collagen is a great supplement to help to improve your skin, your hair, your nails, your joints, your musculature, and even your bones. This stacks really well with the collagen that I have to help with remodeling your joints, especially if you have a sports injury or osteoarthritis. So please go to my store, get the collagen. It also stacks really well with the vitamin C and magnesium. If you drink filtered water, the vitamin C will cross-link with the collagen to improve your dermal layer. Now, heirloom barley. Heirloom barley will help to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals. It'll help with your immune system and your endocrine system. Also, your joint health by bringing down inflammation, your cardiovascular health, and brain function. It's really important to soak up free radicals and bring down that inflammation so your tissues will perform better and you'll have less aging in those organ systems. Detoxify your body regularly. Really important. Get the heirloom barley. You can also get the gladiator barley on my store. Gladiator barley has all the same benefits as the heirloom barley, but one extra benefit. The gladiator barley will help you build muscle. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and make sure they use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. You spend $100 or more, you get a free gift till supplies last. Let's continue.
Time, or they're playing around with him, then he is ready to go back to action, and so is the Israeli military.
Now, going back to what we were previously speaking on in the Strait of Hormuz, I quickly wanted to follow up on that. The U.S. boarding of tankers tied to Iranian oil, could that be viewed as enforcing sanctions, or does it risk being seen as violating the ceasefire itself?
Well, at the moment, the ceasefire, the maintaining of the ceasefire is in the interests of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I'm not sure that it's in their interest for America and Israel to go back to active conflict. And so what President Trump is doing is what he said he would do, which is maintaining and enforcing that blockade. That blockade is crucial because if they can't get their oil tankers out, they can't export oil, they don't have resources to keep fighting. They don't have resources to keep the terrorism and the terror on their own people. If they stop paying their guards, their Islamic Revolutionary Guards, if they stop paying their army and their besieged forces, then this is the beginning of the end of this terribly toxic regime.
One of my last questions for you, with these ships being attacked, seized, intercepted, as we've been talking about, how close are we to wider escalation in the Gulf? Could that also pull in other global powers?
Well, we know that over 12 countries were attacked during this war, including the Saudis, including the Emiratis, the Bahrain. They've really gone for everyone. And so I think that everybody is I believe there's consensus in this region that we have to deal with this now. If we don't deal with this now, all we're doing is kicking down the can for the future generations in the region, but also all around the world. And so I believe that President Trump has put together an incredible coalition. Everybody's working in their own way. We may not be seeing Saudi troops on the ground, but the Saudis are very much behind the enforcing of this blockade. They're finding, in fact, alternative routes to take away the strategic value of the Straits of Hormuz. Other countries are also looking for different strategic routes. And so all this is doing is weakening the Islamic Republic of Iran, that terrible regime. That's what this is all doing.
Fleur, is there anything else you want to add about this? I know we've touched on a lot, and as always, this is just a very fluid debate.
We're going to go to another maybe there's some breaking news here. Philip Morris shares climb. Unbelievable. If you've noticed that on X there seems to be posts of people smoking more often, I suspect that there's almost like this marketing strategy within X to get people to smoke more, and that would help with Philip Morris's stock. Now, let's listen into the updates about these missing scientists. I guess the FBI is probing 11 missing or dead nuclear scientists. Also, what was really strange, and if you paid attention to any shows on the History Channel on UFOs, this David Wilcox, I believe his name, he's pretty famous for UFOlogy and ancient alien theory and all this stuff. He committed suicide, I believe it was yesterday, shortly after his podcast. So very strange, and why he would have committed suicide. You know, were other actors involved? I don't know. Who knows? There's a lot of weird stuff going on when it comes to unidentifiable flying objects and scientists missing. Just very strange.
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build a fully working app without knowing how to code. This is Base 44.
Thanks for staying with us here at Live Now from Fox. Turning our attention now to a story that we are following closely, and it's making national headlines right now. The Trump administration has directed federal agencies to investigate whether a series of deaths and disappearances among scientists with high-level security clearances are linked. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed the probe following reports that 11 individuals tied to sensitive military, nuclear, and aerospace research have been affected. A lot to discuss. So joining us next onto the program is Randy Sutton. He is a retired Las Vegas police lieutenant and also founder of the Wounded Blue. Randy, good morning.
Good morning.
So, Randy, we were talking a little bit behind the scenes here. This story, quite fascinating. A lot of people are focused on this. I need to hear your thoughts, though. 11 scientists working on high-level research with high-level clearance. What sticks out to you now that you know that the White House is launching an official probe?
You know, this is a really interesting situation. I don't believe we've seen this quite literally ever before. What began as some internet chatter has now developed into a full-blown investigation by some of the largest federal agencies in the country. We're talking about the FBI will be taking the lead, as it should. But other agencies will be involved. Department of Defense, there will be the Department of Energy. Any federal agency that has lost someone, or that someone has been connected to that has either been deceased. There are some that have been unsolved murders. Others have been tragic accidents that may or may not be accidents. And so they're going to be looking for any connection. And this is a big investigation. There's a lot of work to be done here, and will require a lot of resources. Now, without a shadow of a doubt, over the time period that we're talking about, people will die. That's the natural way of things. And we don't want to be paranoid here, but it is, as a law enforcement professional, we really don't believe in coincidences. So this is something that needs to be looked at, and that means a fresh set of eyes on all these investigations.
I want to bring up a social media post courtesy of Fox News. It includes a map of the last known locations of all of those scientists. House Oversight Chair James Comer telling Fox also there's a high possibility that something sinister is taking place here. So, I mean, when we look at this map, and we're going to bring it up here full, Randy, and we see that this has taken place across the country, there's not really a central location here that would offer that, I guess, really secure link that is possibly what's being looked at here. As we follow this investigation, what sticks out to you possibly from the dates, the locations?
Well, the randomness here is what really sticks out to me. And, you know, if you look at a large-scale investigation, let's look at serial killers. You know, how some serial killers literally have been able to go for decades without being discovered because of different locations. You know, when you have different jurisdictions doing investigations, very often these investigations don't cross-reference because these agencies aren't talking to each other. And in a situation like this, where you have multiple agencies in multiple locations all over the country, to put a pattern together is really, really challenging. So this is going to be a very challenging investigation for the FBI and these other agencies.
When we also talk about the 11 scientists that we're discussing here, you mentioned something right off the top, which is that some of them are dead at this time, as some were killed. Others are missing. What's the purpose of linking missing person cases with also deceased cases? What are these initial, I guess, links that would have investigators say all of this needs to be looked at together instead of separately?
Well, okay, when you're talking about investigations of this nature, victimology is critical. That is, when I say victimology, that means that the investigators will have to go through the backgrounds of every single one of these. When I say go through the backgrounds, I don't mean do a cursory background check. I mean they have to dive deep into the past of all of these individuals and try to determine, is there a link between them? Did they all work on one project together? What possible a connection could there be to all of these men and women? And that's going to be a critical component.
Want to hear something really freaky? This is very similar to the plot of Three Body Problem. I believe it was on Netflix. And the Three Body Problem, you had scientists that all of a sudden were being killed off mysteriously. No one knew why. And what it was is alien invasion, and the aliens were having humans that were aligned with the aliens to kill off these scientists. The reason why they were killing off the scientists is that the aliens were worried that humans would have technology that surpassed their technology. So with that, I don't think that aliens are invading the United States. All right. That's not the point I'm making. But I would not be surprised that some faction, some group that is either aligned with a foreign power or they're not aligned at all with a foreign power, that are like above foreign powers, like a secret society or a secret group that's concerned about the technological progress that is happening in the United States, and they're trying to retard it, to slow it down, to inhibit it by having these scientists killed. Very similar to the Three Body Problem that was taking place in the series.
To this investigation.
We were just showcasing there some of the photos of those scientists that are coming here into question. We had mentioned that they have a high security clearance, Randy. What does that mean initially? And also, when someone is issued a high security clearance, for example, what kind of security measures are taken, if any, to try to protect such individuals that know highly sensitive information?
Well, in reality, unless they are in really, really super secret stuff, there is nothing to provide security for them. Many of these people, remember, they were no longer employed. They're retired people. So they would no longer be working actively. And of course, that throws another wrench into this investigation. Besides the geographical challenges, these are working for different agencies. I mean, it looks like what they really do have in common is their security clearances, but they need to look and see if there are any connections between one or more of these men and women, and then to a fresh set of eyes will have to go on every single one of them. Remember, an investigation has already taken place here on each of these individuals, by local agencies, some by federal agencies, but all of these men and women who have security clearances, that means that major background investigations were done on them to begin with, and that didn't preclude them from continuing their work in the context that they were. So all of these men and women had clearances, and so their backgrounds have already been done in order to obtain those clearances, and they're updated. So they're going to be looking at all of the backgrounds of these men and women.
The White House has promised a transparent investigation, with Press Secretary Leavitt noting that, quote, no stone will be left unturned. And Randy, because there is so much interest in this case, it could be assumed that a lot of people are going to want answers, and quickly. They're going to want to know each step of this. But realistically, with a case this large, how much would the public be able to learn as it continues? And also, what would investigators be willing to divulge to get the public's help, possibly?
Well, they're not going to be divulging a lot of information to begin with. I can tell you that right now, nor should they. And as you said, this is a massive investigation. Look at the number of people involved. Look at the different locations. The resources that are going to have to be devoted to this are extremely challenging. They're going to have to choose which agencies are going to be playing the roles that they're going to be playing, which are going to be, leading the investigation. And then you have the politics of this as well. We have politicians involved, and they're going to request and maybe demand things be uncovered to the public that may be challenging for law enforcement to do. You can't conduct these investigations in a vacuum. But these investigators and the agencies have to weigh what the need is for the public need to know, and then balance that with keeping these investigations as secret as possible.
Tone, why should people join us on April 23rd through the 25th for the AI Advantage Summit?
Because I know AI is important. You might feel
Federal agencies are involved in this investigation, but they're going to need that help and that cooperation with local agencies as well. Randy, can you walk us through how involved these local agencies are going to be, and which steps possibly they would take over, and really how that entire process of coordinating with the FBI works?
Yeah, the coordination part is going to be the most challenging here. So each of these cases were probably investigated by local law enforcement first. When you look at for instance, the missing persons, that would be done by the local agency. But then other agencies may have been brought in as well. You look at one of these, some of these deaths were involving a plane crash, other auto accidents. Well, you're looking at a vast array of agencies that may have played a role in these investigations. Now, the FBI will be taking the lead, and that's critical because the FBI has more resources when it comes down to conducting large-scale investigations than any other agency. But coordination with the local law enforcement who did the initial investigations is going to be critical. But when it comes down to packaging this up, it's going to be the FBI that will be taking the lead.
We'll continue on with this clip, but please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, to help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. So please go and get the Boomer Boost from my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. This will help to increase your energy levels, have that steady burn of energy throughout the whole day. You'll have more vitality. But Boomer Boost will also help with brain function, cardiovascular health, musculature, help to improve your immune system and your endocrine system. So it's dual purpose. And you take this every day. This is a month's supply, has a very comprehensive supplement profile that's in this powder here. Mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even with just milk. I mix it with hummus. But take it every day, and you have the ingredients to slow down the aging process, and you'll have energy and vitality. And you're soaking up those free radicals, and you're helping control your A1C levels. Super important. So please go to my store, get the Boomer Boost, and take it every day. You can stack it with the heirloom barley or the gladiator barley for synergistic effects. In addition, please go to my store and get the Clarity Factor. This is a very powerful neurostack, and you can stack it with the Boomer Boost. But this Clarity Factor will get rid of that brain fog, allow you to improve the positive neuroplasticity amongst your neurons. You'll be able to think faster, and you'll have better memory. You take this regularly, preferably every day, drink it with filtered water, and you're going to improve your cognition. Super important. Brain health is under focused in terms of health and wellness within the United States, and it's really important to focus on it. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost and the Clarity Factor. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last, and make sure you use discount 5. I want you to save some money, all right? Take my supplements, you take them regularly, and it'll help to slow down the aging process. I am the most comprehensive person on this subject with the best price point, all right? So if you follow my advice, you will get healthy. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Really involving this is, the FBI, it investigates missing persons cases, also local agencies as well. Is there anything that is particularly different when we talk about people who are missing that, again, have that high security clearance, that really have a lot of sensitive information? Are these investigations treated differently than, let's say, a normal person that would go missing?
Yes, absolutely. Especially when you're looking at, this began as some internet chatter, right? And the theories, the conspiracy theories are multiple, and that's going to actually create some muddiness around the investigation, because the investigators are going to have to look at try and peel away the fact from the fiction, because there will be a lot of there'll be a lot of internet detectives working on this and probably giving information. And believe me, even in smaller investigations, when the internet's involved, it can be very challenging to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. But the local investigators that were participants in each of these separate investigations, all of the documentation, all of the investigative reports, all of the interviews with the investigators, this is a massive challenge, and there may be something to it, or unfortunately, the reality is that this may be a series of coincidences. And while that is going to be hard to swallow for a lot of people, they have to look at this, with a non-jaundiced eye, and try to determine what is the truth. And there may be some of these individuals. We have unsolved murders involved here. That's a good thing that there will be fresh eyes on these investigations, because those are the ones that, and the missing persons investigations are really, really challenging for all of these investigators.
Something that you mentioned is that this has started with online chatter. A lot of people at home trying to put the pieces together here because it is very interesting, this story, especially when you're talking about such a vast group of people that are dead.
You ever wonder why these people at home have to play like detective, like they have to play Sherlock Holmes? Why don't they just like focus on their life and making it better instead of, playing detective? Because they know better.
Have gone missing, connected in some sort of way, though. People are most likely going to still dig in on their own, trying to connect these pieces. If they were to want to help investigators on this case, what would be your best advice to people that, may think they have a tip or some kind of lead to push this along?
Finance the old way. Finance the ramp way.
Parents of children who play Roblox. If your child was sexually exploited, abused, or pressured to
well, since the FBI is the major agency that's going to be doing these investigations, you would want to contact the FBI. There will probably be in the not too distant future a phone number that is being given out by investigators that request anyone that has information to contact a specific number or a specific website that will try and move these the people that want to participate or believe they have information to channel it through that. But I think that you're absolutely right when you say there's massive interest in this from all over, not just the United States, but all over the world, because this is such a fascinating case.
Just putting up this map briefly here because, possibly anyone that has been in these areas during these specific time periods could have remembered something. Randy, as you mentioned, this is very fascinating to say the least. This story, the investigation is ongoing. Federal authorities now involved here. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Right off the top, you had said that you don't think you've ever seen anything like this. So something that you want our viewers to keep in mind as, again, we watch for these developments as this investigation progresses, and also just so we don't get lost in whatever kind of theories could be set out there, and really to keep us focused on what actually may have happened.
Oh, this is going to be a challenge for the United States government because now that the president has weighed in, Comer's weighed in. Everyone is involved in this: Congress, the Senate, every agency in the federal government. So trying to have a point of contact, if you will. Well, will it be Caroline Leavitt from the White House, or will it be someone from the FBI? But there does have to be central command, if you will, that gives the information in a coherent fashion, so that it does make sense, and that people are given what they can be told. But this is a long-term thing. This is not a month-long investigation. This investigation could take years. And but each one of these cases has to be taken separately, first of all, and an investigative team will be assigned to each one of these investigations to look at what has been done, what is the investigations that were conducted, how credible are they, is there anything that was missed, and so it's really going to be an incredible case to watch, that's for sure.
Randy Sutton, a retired Las Vegas.
The S&P 500 is trading at 7,120. VIX is still at about 19. And oil has been creeping up throughout the session today. It's now trading at 93.15. And that UCO ETF that I was mentioning earlier is trading at 41.87. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the omega-3. This will help with your cardiovascular health. It brings down inflammation and helps you to control your lipid profile. When you control your lipid profile, you have less plaque formation. And another very important supplement to take to help your overall health is a good probiotic. I have a powdered version and also a veggie cap version. Either one will work for you. I prefer the powdered version, but Many prefer the VeggieCap version for simplicity, but both are very high quality. And by taking them, you're going to improve your gut biome. You're going to reduce inflammation at the gut level. You're going to improve your mucosal barrier. Your immune system at the gut level will improve. You'll have higher concentrations of IgA. You're going to reduce leaky gut syndrome. You're going to reduce the chances of getting allergies, because a lot of problems with allergies is due to leaky gut. And you're going to be able to improve your brain function. You're going to be able to sleep better. Good gut health, a good gut biome will actually help you to get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. And when you do that, you're going to be well rested. You're going to be able to detoxify your central nervous system and consolidate memory. If you have a poor gut, you can't consolidate memory as well as if you had a good gut. So in addition, having a good gut is also going to help with your metabolism. So please go to my store and get the VeggieCap version or the powdered version of the probiotics. Very important to take every day, and it's one of the foundational pieces, and you stack it with the multivitamin that I have on my store, which is easy to digest. And that's a great foundation to build off of. Then you add the Max 35, the C60, the turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans, and the Boomer Boost, and that's a great stack to slow down the aging process. So please go to my store. Make sure that you use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. And if you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift. Click the link in the description of this video and all my videos to get to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, now what we're going to do is let's listen in on on Bloomberg here. I think they're talking about Tesla.
Like Steve, is Elon? Do we have knowledge that Elon's really back and engaged with Tesla? What do we know?
Yeah, I think he is. There are kind of rumors out there that they are going to launch a new vehicle. Not the Roadster. The Roadster on top of a smaller vehicle. I think it's critical. I mean, like if Tesla is into AI, and they're not going to partner with anybody to proliferate that AI, like you see with Rivian and Uber, and then as well as Lucid. They really need to build, expand their market share globally. And I think that's one of the things that we're going to hear about the company as well. A lot of people think it's not an auto company, but I think it's symbiotic, right? You have to have more cars out there to really proliferate their robotaxi, their full self-driving capability. And, overseas sales are actually growing much faster than their pillar markets in the US, China, and Europe.
So just about the competitive environment, specifically China. I mean, I'm thinking about Tesla competing in China and then Tesla competing rest of the world against Chinese products. How's that evolving?
That's a good point. We actually published a piece of research out recently that we think global automakers are actually leveraging the low costs, low labor costs, low capital costs to actually use that as a manufacturing base to export. I think we heard it recently. Volkswagen is looking to do that with their EVs. Chinese local automakers are very strong in their backyard. In the ASEAN market, they're breaking into Japan, they're breaking into South Korea. Look, I think there's an opportunity here to use China to build low-cost vehicles, offer them at a competitive price, and really compete with the Chinese in their own backyard.
Now, I mean, I guess if I were an investor and I don't say a Volkswagen, I'd be a little concerned at this time in history to be making investments in China, to be partnering up with Chinese companies. How are investors getting comfortable with that?
They really don't need to, because if you look at the last 5 to 8 years, the legacy automakers, foreign legacy automakers have been losing quite a bit of market share,
right,
in China to the local makes, and they still have the capacity, plant floor. They're not using it. They're empty, so they can actually recondition those, retool those, actually build cars and use China as an export base.
What's the here in the U.S.? What's the state of the charging network? Because for a lot of people that was and I think to a certain degree still is a gating issue.
Yeah, it is. It is still a big issue. But we are seeing that the charging infrastructure continue to build out. Even though sales have slowed, the charging infrastructure is still continue to expand. Interestingly, though, even though new car sales have came off as a result of the end of the 7,500 subsidy last year, used EVs sales have actually been doing very well.
So, Steve, just for our listeners and viewers here, at the Princeton Bloomberg campus, how many chargers do you guys have there?
We probably have like 45, quite a few.
45. Now, again, I stopped working at that office probably 10 years ago. We had 2. So that shows you what's going on, Steve. All right, Steve, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Steve Mann, Global Autos and Industrials Research Analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. He's down there, Bloomberg's beautiful campus down there in suburban Princeton, New Jersey, where they had 45 charging stations there. Again, when I was there 10 years ago, they had 2. So, I mean, a big, big increase there. And maybe that shows you kind of what's happening out there in the marketplace. So Tesla reporting after the close tonight. Pay attention to that conference call as well after the close. Looking at the markets here, we've got some strength out there. The S&P is up 55 points. That's 0.8%. The NASDAQ doing a little bit better, up 295 points. That's 1.2%. 10-year Treasury yields 4.29%. WTI crude oil now higher, $3.50, $93 a barrel. For our listeners in the U.S., a reminder, you can listen to us via satellite radio on Sirius XM Channel 121. Access the world's only global audio business network, coast to coast, 24 hours a day. Bloomberg Radio on Sirius XM Channel 121 is presented by Golden Crest Metals. Stay tuned for the latest market news and industry research. Your top stories and global business headlines are coming up right now.
All righty. Now we're going to go to MS Now. I think we're going to listen to Mad Cow talking about Alex Jones. Now, have you noticed that Alex Jones doesn't look too healthy? Now, Alex Jones is actually younger than Dr. Paul Cottrell. He's younger, chronologically. Biologically, not so much. Now, obviously, his supplements aren't working for him. Now, if you take a look at what I'm doing, if you follow my advice, you're going to actually slow down the aging process. Now, we're targeting, with my particular protocol, we're targeting all the major pressure points of what is causing aging. And if you follow my advice, you're going to be able to slow that down and you'll be healthier in your geriatric years. So you don't have to be dependent on pharmacopoeia. So you'll actually have a better life and you'll be able to have money to actually use for your retirement instead of just giving it to physicians for all these healthcare bills and all this stuff. So invest in your body just as much as you have to invest in your retirement. Because if you don't, you're going to have problems. And once you get into pharmacopoeia, guess what? You're going to have side effects and you're going to have further deterioration. Because the bottom line is this: allopathic medicine has a tendency to make things worse in the long run, not better. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
In the vast, weird, really right-wing media universe in the United States of America, there's a special and unique place held by an outlet called InfoWars, and its manic host, Alex Jones. Alex Jones, for decades, has peddled Baroque conspiracy theories.
Look at him. Oh, you can't see him because of my mic. Well, never mind now.
alongside a really scammy trade in survivalist merchandise and hilarious supplements that promise lots of things I cannot even say or describe on basic cable. InfoWars isn't just one more thing in the weird right-wing media world. For all its ridiculousness, InfoWars has left a real-world trail that is not just...
The problem that I have with Alex Jones is one, he obviously isn't using his supplements, or if he is, they don't work. And secondly, which is more important, InfoWars as a concept doesn't solve problems. Being a keyboard warrior doesn't solve problems. Kinetic war solves problems. All right? And it's important to inform the public of what's going on, but we're already beyond that point. If you need to get informed, you're so late to the party that you're hopeless. So it's not about getting informed. It's about how do you solve the problem. And when it comes to what is being going on with losing our constitutional freedoms, what is going on with the bombardment of society and degrading our health, what is going on with power brokers affecting your financial situation, the only answer is, one, to position yourself so you can correct it, so you are benefiting, that you aren't being a victim, and protecting those constitutional freedoms. And guess what? To protect those constitutional freedoms means war, means kinetic. It doesn't mean information. So this whole information is just a bunch of pacifists just sitting in and typing on keyboards. That's not war. Real war is kinetic. And this is the reason why the America First pacifism is going to fail when it comes to actually solving the problem with Islamic terror. The only way to fight Islamic terror is to actually kill the enemy, not type on a keyboard. Information war is important at a moment in time where you need to inform the public. But we're at the point where we're beyond that. It's kinetic war now. It's in your face, as Stephen Bannon says, the grill's in your face. It's time to, act. Next man up, whatever. That's what's happening here. Because if you're just going to continue on with the information war, quote, information wars, all right, then you just really have a bunch of pacifists. Kinetic war. Did we stop the nefarious acts of certain scientists that were involved in the early part of this decade? No. Why? So the labs are still there. Because information warriors don't get things done. It's about kinetic war. All wars have been won because of kinetic means, not information. And this is the reason why InfoWars it has failed their, quote, mission statement. Our constitutional freedoms, are they more secure or less secure since InfoWars? They're less secure. More people have listened to Alex Jones, has listened to InfoWars, but our actual freedoms, our constitutional freedoms, have been eroded. Why? It's not Alex Jones's fault. It's the fault of the concept. InfoWars don't win wars. Kinetic means wins wars. So we have a bunch of pacifists now that aren't willing to actually fight for the country. We have a bunch of pacifists now that don't really want to bolster up the Enlightenment, which is the bedrock of our constitutional republic. Don't be surprised you lose your constitution. Don't be surprised that you have socialism. Don't be surprised that all this stuff will happen. Because everyone wanted to be a keyboard warrior. Info wars don't win wars. Kinetic wars win wars. It has always been like that since the dawn of man, and it will always be like that. So what's happening is this Alex Jones is imploding. He's imploding. But it was always about him because it's gonzo journalism. Alex Jones found a way to put himself into the news cycle. It's gonzo journalism based on definition. Let's continue with Mad Cow. Now, I'm not a big fan of Mad Cow at all because she's a crazy liberal. She doesn't believe in God, country, and family. She doesn't believe in this country. She wants to step on the American flag, and she has no affinity to our Enlightenment. She believes in a postmodern ethic. Does she care about family? No, she wants more abortions. The United States alone, since 1972, has aborted more than 75 million fetuses. 65 million fetuses since 1972. Still think that abortion rights are family? No, they're not. It's actually, it's a cult of death. So, no, I'm not for Mad Cow or MS Now. But the thing is that Alex Jones didn't solve the problem with his information war. Didn't solve the problem at all. You actually have less. You have more people informed, but you have less constitutional freedoms because no one wanted to act. Well, the only way is to act. You got to have kinetic means, not potential means. You got to move forward. You got to win on the battlefield. All right? Information war. What bunch of horse shit. And so everything that's happening to Alex Jones, he deserves. All this negative things that are happening with him, because he's a gonzo journalist that didn't solve the problem and made millions in doing it. Millions. His life, even though he's bankrupt and all this stuff, he has millions of dollars. He's living a very nice life, way better than your life. Now, he was trying to inform the public of news from a certain perspective. And because we have freedom of press, he has that right. But he's a gonzo journalist. And people need to realize that we're at a moment in time in our human development, in our country's history, that information war doesn't work. Kinetic war works.
Toxic. I would argue it is evil. Specifically when it comes to Alex Jones's signature conspiracy theory that the 2012 massacre of school kids at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut didn't really happen. That it was a hoax and the kids who were all killed there are in fact still alive or they never existed in the first place. It's insanity and unbelievable. That was his Achilles heel. That was the Achilles heel. Right when he went down that road, that was the end, right? His zenith was asking questions, very important questions about what was going on with 9/11. And there's something that he missed when he was covering 9/11. That was, and a lot of people didn't know about it at the time, but there's a documentary talking about actually Air Force One and what happened during 9/11. There was a coup that took place. There was a coup against George Bush, and it happened on Air Force One. The Secret Service did not allow him to take control of the situation. Now, if you don't believe me, just take a look at the documentary that's on YouTube about Air Force One and what happened on 9/11. All right? The Secret Service prevented him from being the president.
and taking control of the situation. But no one talked about it. I just found that out last weekend. All right? 9/11 happened in 2001. It is now 2026. Very few people would know this. Well, why do we have a deep state being able to supersede the president of the United States? That is a major problem. And that is not our Constitution. So we just going to have InfoWar on that? Or are we going to galvanize as a society and say that is unacceptable and it should never happen? No, we won't. It's bread and circus. It's bread and circus. But the Achilles heel of Alex Jones, for sure, was Sandy Hook. And he played right into it. And he's stupid to fall into that trap. And that's gonzo journalist. But he sold a lot. He sold a lot of product and he got famous because there's a lot of stupid people out there believing some bullshit story. Meanwhile, other things were happening. Like what happened at Sandy Hook was a travesty and it hurt a lot of families. But what the Federal Reserve is doing to your wealth is far more affecting your life than what happened in Sandy Hook. Do you think what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz is just show? This is going to affect your life. What's going on with artificial intelligence and the structural unemployment that could ensue? That's far more important than anything that Alex Jones is saying. Those are real, tangible things that will affect your pocketbook, your life, your retirement, your health. These things that are happening. What about the nanoplastics and the microplastics that are in your environment that are affecting your brain? Early onset of dementia because of plastic consumption. These nanoplastics that are in everything. It's also affecting your heart. You take autopsies and take a look at the tissues, and these nanoplastics and microplastics are there, causing early onset of diseases. That's way more important than Sandy Hook. But you got all these people out there, America First pacifists that, want to play Sherlock fucking Holmes. And what do? They don't pay attention to the real stuff that's happening. Oh, the Federal Reserve, is doing nefarious things. Yeah, they are. Oh, we got to go back to the gold standard. No, we can't. You know why? Because it would be deflationary, because we don't have enough gold. When you have a growing economy and you have a fixed monetary base, it's actually deflationary. So don't be stupid. So, people don't even look at the things properly because they've been a keyboard warrior for the last 15 years and they're not paying attention to how their life is going to be affected. But there are some things that are virtuous that you need to stand up for and protect. And that's the Enlightenment, our Constitution, and making sure that enemies that can cause existential threats to our life are eliminated. That is domestic and foreign. You don't do that through InfoWars. You do that through kinetic means. It's always been like that throughout all of human history. So let's go back to Mad Cow.
Be cruel. As Alex Jones repeatedly pushed that insanity on InfoWars, some of his fans subjected the grieving families in Sandy Hook to years of online abuse and harassment and death threats. Years into it, in 2018, several Sandy Hook families sued Alex Jones for defamation. Juries found him liable. The families were ultimately awarded about $1.5 billion. But the families have never received a penny of that because Alex Jones declared bankruptcy after the verdict. A bankruptcy judge ordered that all of InfoWars' assets, including intellectual property, the InfoWars brand itself, needed to be sold off to help Alex Jones satisfy those debts to the families. Well, you may remember about a year and a half ago, we learned that the surprise winner of an auction of InfoWars assets was the satirical news site, The Onion, for which Alex Jones and InfoWars would, of course, be a delicious punchline. The Onion would turn InfoWars into a parody of itself. stop it from doing more harm, start maybe repairing some of the harm that it's done. You might also remember, though, that almost as soon as The Onion got a hold of InfoWars, they lost it again. Alex Jones challenged the auction. It's been tied up in court ever since. But then today, a breakthrough. This is the front page of The Onion tonight. Look, The Onion, InfoWars. You can see the top story in the upper left there. At long last, InfoWars is ours. You see the InfoWars logo with the onion for the O in info on the upper right-hand side of the screen. The Onion today announced that pending final approval by a judge, they have reached an arrangement to actually truly take over InfoWars. The Onion's new InfoWars page, like the original, is chock full of scammy ads.
This is a classic example of what I'm saying. You need to put on you need to channel your Caesar, your Julius Caesar and your Machiavelli genetics, all right? It's about kinetic means, not information means. And this is what's going to happen to your life. If you've just focused on just consuming information and not reacting and not taking charge of and pushing back on things that are just wrong, all right? You need to pursue virtue. And if you have that foundation of the Enlightenment as your as a cornerstone, and you focus on as pillars that are resting on that foundation, God, country, and family, you will be virtuous. But we don't have enough people like that, unfortunately. You see an enemy, you go march into Gaul, you chop their fucking heads off. There's no information about it. There's no information war about that. That's what Julius Caesar did. And he won. This is what happens when you're a pacifist. This is what happens when you're an American first pacifist. You will lose. You will lose.
Any products include a Demon Guard patch, 24-hour holy protection from all dark entities, also Pure O oxygen capsules, as well as an offer to, quote, learn to float, discover the secret. This is all meant to do some practical good as well. Proceeds from the new Onion-run InfoWars will go in part towards starting to pay off Alex Jones's incredible debts to the families of Sandy Hook. Joining us now is my old friend, Ben Collins, CEO of The Onion. Ben, congratulations. Thank you so much for making time to be here tonight.
Oh, thank you, Rachel.
Now, so people that are listening, don't get the wrong impression. I'm a conservative. I do not want socialism in my country. I think mad cow is, out of control. They want to erode the Second Amendment. She's a lawyer, and she, you know what it is she's making tons of money being on MS Now, and she's syndicated, or and you know what? She believes in a lot of things that are just antithetical to this country being virtuous. The way of her own lifestyle that she chose is antithetical to God, country, and family. All right? I don't need to go into the details of it. Everyone knows what she is. But the thing is that it is important to call out on the stupidity on the right, too. Alex Jones did it to himself. And what he has been given on a silver platter is the gloating of the socialists, of the libtards. Still think InfoWars is getting the job done? The only thing that's going to get the job done is Captain America busting some heads.
Quite a day.
What didn't I say about this that you want people to know? Or did I say anything about it that I got wrong?
No, you got everything right. I do want people to remember that it was 9 days after the election, the 2014 election, where we saw the burning building known as the InfoWars auction and walked directly into it, knowing that likely no one else but Alex Jones is going to bid on that thing. And we won that auction, and then it was held up in court for reasons no one understands. And, for 17 months, we were threatened by Alex Jones with the long arm of the Trump government, where he had a lot of friends. And, thankfully, these families, my staff, everybody saw it through. And we're about to take over this thing and do something really fun.
Can you tell us more about what your plans are for InfoWars? I mean, obviously you've got the InfoWars website, but what else do you get? And what should we expect you to do with it?
Yeah, we'll get everything inside of that way too vast studio in Austin, Texas, where I think we also get like a rowing machine or something. There's something in the inventory list that's a little ridiculous, but we're excited to find out what's actually in there. Most importantly, though, we get to, take over this name and look, Rachel, the way people get their information now has changed. They get it from people who tell you that you're like one NMO away from solving world hunger or something. That's not actually true, but no one has really made fun of these people professionally yet. And thankfully, we got a really good professional comedian, Tim Heidecker, to take over this thing. And we look
So
forward.
what this is set up for, all right, Onion, it's just liberal, all right? But what's going to happen is that it's going to be very similar to the Jon Stewart show. Remember when Jon Stewart just came out? I think it was on the Comedy Central channel. I think it was back in the day. All right, this must have been like 1999, something like that, 98. I think it was 99. And Jon Stewart is talking about politics in a funny way, all right? And it was always, at the very beginning, I think it was slightly skewed to the Republican Party, but it also hit the Democratic Party when he was doing the show at the very early days. But as time went on, Jon Stewart became more polarized. And you fast forward to today, where they rebooted his show. And it is anti-Trump, 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 right? Same thing with the comedians that are on the big stage, for ABC, NBC, CBS. They're all anti-Trump. So what's going to happen here is that now they're going to go into the potosphere, they're going to go into the Twittersphere, and now they're making fun of the alternative news. So what is going to happen here is it's going to affect other podcasters that have conservative values, and they're going to try to demonize them, especially when they're trying to show that there are some nefarious things that are happening with the way the government is spending your tax dollars, or what they're doing in the military industrial complex, or, surveillance technologies, all this stuff. All right. And now we're going to be demonized. InfoWars ended up making podcasters that are trying to share information on how to improve people's well-being, either in finance or in health, harder. So did InfoWars really work? No. And this is why I keep on saying, you can't win wars with info, because other people will use means to curtail your activities. And that's exactly what happened with Alex. Now it's going to be harder. Now what the Onion is the potosphere version of Jon Stewart. Okay, all right. And keep on letting your Constitution get eroded, because people like him, people like Mad Cow, they want to erode your First Amendment, and they want to erode your Second Amendment. They want to erode your Fourth Amendment. They want to erode a lot of your amendments. And guess what? That means that you're losing your constitutional freedom. That means that we're losing the foundation of our constitutional republic. What are we going to do? You're just going to let it happen? The only way to stop it is kinetic means. Actually holding our elected officials accountable. And saying, enough is enough, this is what you're going to do, or there's going to be a big problem. You can't be talking nice anymore. Because we're now, once the Democratic Party wins the House, which is most likely going to happen in the midterms, the power of the presidency of Donald Trump is going to be radically diminished. And that's going to start at the end of this year. I think actually Congress gets sworn in early January. I think it's like that first Monday or whatever it is. But so the very beginning of next year, we're going to see more belligerence of socialism. We're going to see more belligerence of the ultra left. And that's what America First pacifism created. You know, the big podcasters like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, all demonizing Trump because of this war in Iran. America First pacifism is going to lead to a control of the House, maybe even the Senate, by the Democratic Party. And when they're in control, and you have the Onion now attacking conservatism in the potosphere, because they're going to use that means of just they're going to lampoon Alex Jones, but they're going to also lampoon conservatives. And it's going to make it harder. It's going to make it harder to move the country forward into prosperity. So what are we going to do? Still think InfoWars is the right way to go? As a concept? Just be a keyboard warrior and that things are going to be just fine? I don't think that's what our founding fathers, which I'm a direct descendant of, thought during the revolution. I don't think that Jefferson thought that being a keyboard warrior was the way to water the tree of liberty.
Infesting your social media feeds with caricatures and grotesqueries of the very people who have ruined our media ecosystem over the last 10 years.
I have to ask, just because I've been obsessed with it for so long, are you getting all the supplements?
I think that's still up in the air. The first time around, we definitely were, and we were gonna boil it all down into one big pill. Now we're not so sure, but we will be selling supplement adjacent stuff. Maybe water that cures everything, or I believe that we're selling omega-3 fish oil from exclusively conservative fish. That's a big important thing for us.
Ben Collins, CEO of The Onion, now at least one of the masters of the InfoWars universe.
You know, and the thing is that they're also going to demonize the means to be able to get healthy. They believe that allopathic medicine is the right way to go. All right, in terms of all of your ailments, but the reality of the situation is that the research from sports medicine, from geriatric medicine, aging medicine, aging research is all showing it's about lifestyle change and proper supplementation with the stacking. And so they're going to demonize this crap. You know, omega-3 is super important for cardiovascular health. Super important. You know the two top diseases in the United States? Diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Two top ones. And guess what? For most people, it's preventable. Yes, there's some people that have genetic disorders or maybe, you know, some sort of formation problem with their heart. But the far majority of the people that have diabetes and heart disease is self-induced and can be reversed. So what they're going to do is they're going to demonize people that are trying to reach out to the public saying, you know what? Your obesity can be reversed. Your diabetes can be reversed. Your cardiovascular disease can be reversed. But instead, what will happen is people won't get informed, people won't take action and improve their health. And what's going to happen is that they're going to be on beta blockers or some sort of other heart medication to try to control their blood pressure. And it will always be you're going to slowly become more and more and more dependent on it as you get older. And as your heart weakens, slowly, you eventually start having heart failure. That's the path of allopathic medicine for cardiovascular disease. 100% guaranteed. If you pick the wrong path, you're going to have that. It's a slow deterioration of your cardiac tissue. Doing the allopathic method. Or you can take a path where you try to prevent it from happening, or if you already have it, slowly build your heart, strengthen your heart, reduce the plaque, be more cognizant of your lifestyle, change what's bad in that lifestyle, and you can improve it. And slowly titrate yourself off of that allopathic method. But now, because of Alex Jones, because he thought he knew better, ended up creating a monster called the Onion. And now it's going to be harder to inform people that, you know what, your lifestyle is heavily predicating the path of how your genetics are expressed. Your lifestyle affects your epigenetics. Even if you have a predisposition genetically with your DNA, it doesn't mean that it'll manifest. Because you can have the proper epigenetics with the proper acetylation and methylation of those genes. And this is the key of why some people look older and why other people are not. So you're going to have now people on the Onion demonizing, oh, taking omega-3 is bad. Taking omega-3 isn't going to help you, which is total horseshit. Omega-3 is super important for your cardiovascular health. Not only that, if you take omega-3, C60, D3, K2, turmeric, ashwagandha root, and you take that every day with a little bit of cardiovascular fitness, some cardio training and some resistance training, proper diet, you can reverse plaque buildup. You can take something that's 50 or 60% blockage and turn it into 15% blockage, and it takes about a year to a year and a half. Most people don't know that. But better yet, it's better not to build up the plaque. Stupid. That's what's going to happen. More people are going to have cardiovascular disease. Thank you, Mad Cow. Thank you so much for being a stupid ass, because you're a lawyer. Most lawyers out there are stupid fucks. All right, let's go to the National Review, because you know what? We need more conservatism in our world.
Trying to save money on business travel? You should definitely use Navan. Navan's platform helps our companies save money by giving us...
Hey everyone, not for the first time, the left is very upset with Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Take a look at some of these headlines. I'm Rich Lowry of National Review. Now, Clarence Thomas gave a speech at the University of Texas last week that was wonderful about the Declaration of Independence. I think there's a good case that Clarence Thomas is the greatest living American. Incredible personal story, has had a huge impact on our national life, a man of courage and principle. But let's put that aside. Maybe a topic for a video on another day. But Thomas, in the course of this speech, portrayed progressivism as a clear and present danger to the truths of the Declaration of Independence and our constitutional system. This got, of course, progressives very upset. They say this is a partisan attack. It's unfair to progressives. It's historically illiterate. So who is correct? Well, I think, as usual, it's Clarence Thomas, but let's delve into why. And here he is beginning to make his case in the course of the speech against progressivism.
At the beginning of the 20th century, a new set of first principles of government was introduced into the American mainstream. The proponents of this new set of first principles, most prominent among them, the 28th President of our country, Woodrow Wilson, called it progressivism. Since Wilson's presidency, progressivism has made many inroads into our system of government and our way of life. It has coexisted uneasily with the principles of the Declaration. Because it is opposed to those principles, it is not possible for the two to coexist forever.
So there, Thomas is setting up Woodrow Wilson as the paladin of turn-of-the-century American progressivism and describing how progressivism viewed the Constitution as a living document, as our constitutional system as something that was dated and needed to be moved beyond so history could progress into the sunny uplands. Then Thomas went on to make this point.
We were fortunate not to trade our lock-in bonds for the supposedly enlightened world of Hegel, Marx, and their followers. Fascism, which after all was National Socialism, triggered wars in Europe and Asia that killed tens of millions. The socialism of the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China proceeded to kill more tens of millions of their own people. This is what happens when natural rights give way to the higher good of notions of history, progress, or, as Thomas Sowell has written, the visions of the anointed.
Okay, so cue the outrage. Let's look at some of these headlines. SCOTUS blog, Justice Thomas's wrong-headed attack on progressivism. Salon, Clarence Thomas's attack on progressivism should alarm you. Daily Kos, Justice Thomas's vile, slanderous attack on progressivism shows just what we're up against. And the New Republic, Clarence Thomas just can't get American history right. Now, Clarence Thomas's case against Woodrow Wilson seems unassailable. He was impatient with traditional constitutional constraints on the federal.
Woodrow Wilson also helped to usher in this almost technocracy. We're talking about the Federal Reserve in controlling the monetary supply. We're talking about the League of Nations, which we weren't a part of after World War II, or I'm sorry, after World War I. But eventually, after World War II, we boot up a spinoff of the League of Nations, which is what we call the UN, the United Nations. But this guy was a technocrat. And this is the problem with socialists. They want the technocracy. They want to build in the technocracy. Why? Because they know better. It's nanny state. They're going to tell you on how to live your life. Because they're experts. They're experts. Mad Cow is an expert on omega-3. She's an expert. I wonder how many autopsies she's done. Like a dipshit.
He thought we should be governed by enlightened administrators and experts. He was a racist who resegregated the federal government. He supported eugenics. He suppressed dissent during World War I. So what is the progressive rejoinder to this case against Wilson? It's basically, Woodrow Wilson, we've never heard of the guy. Here's the New Republic. Thomas is correct that progressivism was introduced around the turn of the 20th century, that Woodrow Wilson was the 28th president, and that Wilson was a progressive. The historical accuracy ends there, though. Presenting Wilson as the inventor of progressivism is historically illiterate, akin to saying that Joseph Stalin invented communism or that Ronald Reagan invented conservatism. Salon has basically the same take. Thomas spent an inordinate amount of time lambasting Woodrow Wilson as progressivism's intellectual and spiritual leader, when I would guess that most people who identify as progressives today couldn't tell you when he was president, much less what he believed in. And if they do know who he was, they would almost certainly reject vast swaths of his philosophy. He was, after all, an unreconstructed racist and eugenicist, something Thomas seemed to suggest as a feature of progressivism, which could not be more wrong. None of this is particularly convincing. The New Republic says, hey, look, progressivism began before Woodrow Wilson came around. But Thomas isn't denying that. He's just saying that Wilson was extremely important and prominent and was president of the United States. Salon says, well, today progressives.
I think what Thompson was basically stating was that the president that ushered in the progressivism opened up the door and let the floodgates in. All right. Who is Wilson? And I think that Thomas is right. It got even worse under Roosevelt.
Forgotten about Wilson, or they've even turned their backs on him because he was such a terrible racist. Fine, no one's denying that either. It's just that was a very long time coming, and progressives spent decades and decades valorizing Woodrow Wilson because they recognized Wilson as one of their own. He created an aggrandized government that had leapt the traditional bounds that had limited the government prior to that. And FDR, still a great progressive hero, built on what Wilson had created the foundations for. So yes, Wilson was a progressive pioneer. Let's not deny it. Now, the left also freaked out over the Thomas clip where he talked about fascism and Hitler and Stalin. Here was the Slate headline. Clarence Thomas just gave a speech blaming progressivism for Hitler. It was mostly just
just you, building your app on base 44.
Sad. Now, Thomas didn't blame progressivism for Hitler. He did say, it's not in the clip I showed earlier, but it's related to it. He did say that Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin were intertwined with progressivism. I might put it a little differently, that progressivism and these totalitarian movements partook of
Nazis. The Nazis, just by definition, National Socialist Party. The National Socialist Party, all right? Socialism is in the term, all right?
Spirit of the age that had impatience with any constraints on government power, believed in mass politics and corporatist policies and the like. But progressivism and totalitarianism are distinct phenomenon. But where Thomas is on totally unassailable ground, and none of his critics give him credit for this very tellingly, is that once you reject the Lockean foundations of the American system and no longer believe we have natural rights, no longer believe that anything is fixed, you believe in history marching forward with a capital H, there are no constraints on government power. So Wilson was not a Nazi, but there's a reason he supported racist policies or eugenics. He didn't feel that check from a Lockean understanding of the American system. This is why you get an 8-1 Supreme Court decision. Thomas cited this, Buck v. Bell, in his speech, 8-1 decision upholding a Virginia sterilization law, one of the most notorious decisions in the Supreme Court's history. Oliver Wendell Holmes, a progressive in good standing, wrote the opinion, one justice against it, one dissenter, happened to be the traditional conservative. He was a guy named Pierce Butler. So he actually, in effect, ran a controlled experiment in real time, getting to the deeper point that Clarence Thomas was making here. On the one hand, we had Woodrow Wilson, again, active supporter of segregationists, eugenicist, jailed his opponents during World War I. And then, several years later, but same basic time frame, we have Calvin Coolidge, who gave one of the greatest, if not the greatest, speeches extolling the Declaration of Independence. Thomas quoted it with great effect in his University of Texas talk, who wasn't an active supporter of segregation, wasn't a eugenicist, wouldn't even occur to him to jail his political opponents, because he had Wilson unmoored to the American founding, thinking it's the past and we need to get beyond that small time thinking. And then you have Coolidge deeply tethered to the vision of the founding fathers. Now, Thomas is saying that Calvin Coolidge supported view is the ultimate protection of our rights, because if you have that view of natural rights, that view of the fixity of the Constitution, then you can't get fascism. You're not tempted to jail your political opponents. And he isn't saying at all that everyone on the left is a threat to our system of government. No, there are plenty of liberals who believe liberal things, who also believe deeply in our system of government and natural rights, and will stand up, for instance, for things like free speech. Progressivism as a philosophy is different. It believes in a so-called living constitution, just the way Woodrow Wilson did back in his day, which means, in effect, we don't have a constitution, or we only have a constitution when it's politically convenient. Otherwise, it's perfectly fine to work around it or to get judges to reinterpret it. And what Thomas is saying, it's a profound point, is once you've ceded that, once you believe that's how government can operate, in theory, there is no check on any.
This is why I keep on saying that socialists want to erode our Constitution. Socialists don't believe in a constitutional republic. They believe in a democracy. Those are two totally different things, because a democracy in its purest form is mob rule. And you don't have property rights. This is the reason why it's so important to anchor yourself to the foundation of the Enlightenment. Life, liberty, and property rights. And that is guaranteed in our Constitution. But if you have a society willing to erode that ideal, if you have a society that says that the Constitution doesn't mean anything, if you have a society that basically says that democracy supersedes a constitutional republic, we no longer have our country. And that is a major problem. Now, how many people are willing to stand up and actually fight for that? Fight for a constitutional republic? Very few, unfortunately. Very few. Most people are stupid. Most people, all they care about is their own little world. They're very self-centered. And they don't realize that people are eroding their Constitution. They're eroding the freedoms that we were born into. This constitutional republic is worth fighting for. And no matter how many keyboard warriors you have, no matter how much information warfare is out there, it's not going to do a hill of beans. It's not going to do any good. The only way is to fight. The only way is to have kinetic means. It's basically, do not tread on me or there will be a war. And that is the way our whole system of government has been built up on. You can't allow these socialists to erode our Constitution. It is not acceptable. It is not acceptable. But because of the craziness of the Trump administration with being wishy-washy with dealing with Iran, because he's been wishy-washy with the tariffs, he's been wishy-washy in terms of ending, finishing the construction of the White House. Everything he touches is in a state of flux. It makes his presidency look weak, not strong. And I voted for the guy 3 times. I want him to succeed. But what's going to happen is that the Democratic Party is going to win the House and maybe even the Senate. And it's going to usher in this swing of the pendulum is going to go now not towards conservatism. It's going to go more towards liberalism, this ultra liberal socialism that is taking place in the Democratic Party. That's not good for our country. And not only that, it's going to cause more debt. We're not going to be just $40 trillion in debt. We'll be $45 trillion in debt. We cannot survive this. But everyone was just typing away, thinking everything's going to be, copacetic. InfoWars destroyed America. The only way to reboot America is to be forceful. And that is making sure that our elected officials stop being paid by these lobbying groups. And you got to hold them accountable. And if things aren't going the right way, if the government is not representing the people that voted them into office, then there needs to be forceful protesting that will happen, that needs to happen across the country to force the issue. They want you to be in bread and circus so they can do whatever they want. You're going to lose your Constitution. You're going to lose your fundamental rights if you have socialism take over in the branches of government, in the judicial branch, the legislative branch, and the executive branch. And God forbid that happens, because if socialism, if these ultra liberals control all three branches of government, we're going to have a major problem. A major problem. But it's also the Republicans' fault. For they were given a gift in 2024 during the election to be able to control the Senate, the House, and the executive branch. And they also have more seats on the judicial branch. And the Republican Party failed to act. So the problem is that you have the Republican Party has good ideas but can't actually implement them. And the Democratic Party has bad ideas, but they're organized enough to be able to implement them. And there's the problem that we have. Does the Republican Party deserve another chance? No, because they failed to act now. But the problem is that you have the Democratic Party in charge. It's going to be worse.
Thing that government can do. He is totally right about that. Thank you, Justice Thomas, for a marvelous speech. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.
Everyone loves.
People need to realize that we have rights that are endowed by our Creator. And we need to hold those and protect them, or people are going to try to take them away and make you a slave. And that's what this is all about. Do you want to have a top-down government? You're going to protect your freedoms? Or not? Progressives don't want to protect your freedoms. Progressives believe in taking away your freedoms for the betterment of a just society, whatever that means. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver toothpaste. This will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, and reduce inflammation at the gum line. It'll improve your gum health, and it will help to neutralize. Super important to take every day, but especially during the cold season. Also, structural nano silver gels. These gels will help to improve your skin, speed the healing of a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn. And if you are around someone or you're not feeling well because of the cold season, put it on your hands. It stays active for 5.5 hours. So please go to my store and get those structural nano silver gels, very high quality. And I have a new product on my store. It's called Super Strong Relief. Super Strong Relief will help to alleviate pain, like a sprain or a bruise, pulled muscle from working out, joint pain from osteoarthritis, even tension headaches. You apply it to the area to relieve the pain. For headaches, you put it on your forehead, around your temples, and around your neck and shoulder muscles, and it'll help to reduce that headache. It works within 90 seconds. All right? You apply it topically. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Super Strong Relief. That's the end of my show. Thank you for listening. Please help support the work that I do by getting the great products that I offer. I use these products to help to slow down the aging process. And if you pay attention, I've just told you how to stack them accordingly to get the max benefit and to be able to squeeze your precious dollars so you can use them to improve your health. So thank you for listening. Please share the links and ask your social media to follow me so I can grow the channel. I'm here to try to help people get healthy and also how to navigate through the financial markets. And if you've been paying attention to me, I've been telling you certain resistance levels and certain support levels of the S&P 500. If you pay attention to when those are triggered, you make money. All right? So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.